Chapter 1173. Elder Misha, can I file a complaint against Elder Rococo? As a guardian knight, Arthur and the other 3 guardian knights were responsible for the safety of Rococo and Misha. However, he felt that he was not a bodyguard but a nanny, especially Rococo, an 80-year-old woman, but she was still causing troubles along the way. He went to the police station twice and harassed the flight attendants 3 times. He was listed as an unwelcome passenger by 2 airlines. If he hadn't come forward to solve the problem, Rococo might never have the chance to fly again. She had been jumped by an immortal once and molested a man twice. Because a child had called her an old granny, this unscrupulous old woman had used magic to seal the child's mouth for 3 days. Later on, he had to secretly remove the magic. Originally, they had hired a temporary driver in the United States. But the next day, the driver quit because he couldn't stand the harassment. Misha was helpless. Rococo's personality was bad, but she was strong. The Great Witch wasn't joking. The Magic Palace hadn't produced a Great Witch for many generations, and this generation only had her and Rococo. In the Magic Palace, only she could barely restrain Rococo's bad personality. Everyone in the Magic Palace hated Rococo to the bone. When other witches recruited students, they would naturally be witches with outstanding talent. For example, Misha herself and her 2 disciples were both witches who awakened on the 2nd night. But Rococo's students were all men. Moreover, after the age of 40, her students would be forced to leave. There was once a student of Rococo who ran to Misha in tears, saying that he had been touched by Rococo. Although this was already Rococo's worst behavior. But to the entire Magic Palace, this was definitely a scandal. Everyone in Europe knew about this bastard Great Witch. Bear with it for a while longer. When we get back, you will be awarded the Knight's Medal. Misha said. Generally speaking, it was the easiest to advance when they went on a mission with Rococo. Because as long as they solved the various problems caused by Rococo, it would be like they had experienced a tribulation. Moreover, Rococo had a special disaster physique. Wherever she went, there would be an 80% chance of disaster. Before this, there had never been any disaster physique. Until Rococo appeared. And most of the time, this disaster was probably caused by Rococo herself. That was why Rococo rarely came out, because she was the inventor of the calamity physique. If it weren't for the seriousness of the situation, Rococo might not have been able to come out. How boring. I don't like you at all, Arthur. Your heart doesn't match your handsome appearance. Rococo said angrily. At this moment, Arthur's heart was crumbling. All right, stop messing around, Rococo. It's getting late. Bisa said, Arthur, which hospital are the corpses in now? Elder Misha, the corpses were not placed in the hospital, but in the underground parking lot of the police station. Police station? That's a good place to store them. Bamisa said, it seems that there are capable people in the police station. They actually know how to use the power of the police station to suppress the resentment of those corpses. Yes, if they were in the police station, it wouldn't be easy for the evil murderer to succeed. After all, there are so many corpses, and if he wants to destroy the police station's morale, he has to destroy it from the inside. Then let's go there now. Maybe the police are planning to use these corpses to wait for their prey. We might be able to help them. This is a land devoid of spiritual energy. It's impossible for there to be any powerful spiritualists. I'll just find that evil spiritualist and kill him. That way, I'll have a lot of time to date. Arthur glanced at Rococo. You call that a date? You're harassing young men most of the time, right? Under the night sky, there were still many police officers busy in the police station. The crime rate in America was too high, especially at night. Most crimes happened at night. Therefore, there were still many police on duty and patrolling at night. Chun Zhao parked his car by the road and looked at the police station not far away. There seemed to be a lot of cameras here. Chun Zhao observed the surrounding cameras without batting an eyelid. Then he pretended to enter a 24-hour convenience store and bought a pack of cigarettes. In the past, he would smoke occasionally, but ever since Feilai got pregnant, he didn't smoke at all. It was actually Chun Zhao's clone that was holding the cigarette. Chun Zhao's real body had already disappeared into the darkness. As soon as the clone walked out of the convenience store, he saw a familiar face.
Huh.
You're Mr. Chen? Chun Zhao's clone looked at the man before him and thought for a moment. Mr. Bolton?
Huh.
Nice to meet you. Why are you here? Bolton looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. I'm here to smoke. Chun Zhao's clone waved the cigarette in his hand. My girlfriend's pregnant, and I was told to stay away from cigarettes. I couldn't help it, so I said I had something to do. I'm going to smoke a few cigarettes outside before going back to the hotel.
Huh?
You're the same as me. I can only smoke behind my wife's back. I have to spray perfume before going back in case my wife finds out. Chen Zhao opened the pack and gave one to Bolton. Oh, is the police station opposite where you work? Chen Zhao asked, even though he already knew the answer. He wanted to create a coincidence. Even if he was suspected in the future, he could give a reasonable explanation.
Yes.
Chen Zhao was scheming against Bolton, but he didn't know that he was currently being watched. In a small building 1 kilometer away, Fei Sha was looking at Chen Zhao with a high-powered telescope. X9 was pointing a large-caliber sniper rifle at Chen Zhao. X9, can you kill that man? The target has been locked on. The accuracy is 95%. Fei Sha, if you kill that man now, you'll only alert the enemy. Teacher, that man must be here for the 1,000-faced demon spirit. If we don't kill him now, it'll make the situation more complicated. Ma Hage was also holding the telescope. She realized that the enemy Fei Sha was talking about was actually the Asian she'd met at the edge of the cemetery. Chun Zhao knew nothing about this, because this was his clone. He didn't have any magic abilities. He also didn't have Shadow Eye that could detect people spying on him in the dark. Just then, the lights in the police station suddenly went out. Bolton saw the station suddenly fall into darkness and sharply sensed something was wrong. He immediately charged toward the police station. Chun Zhao's clone looked in the direction of the police station, and his lips curled into a smile. His real body was taking action. Suddenly, he sensed danger. Chun Zhao's clone subconsciously looked into the distance. Chapter 1174. As soon as Chun Zhao snuck into the police station, he realized that his clone was dead. Was it a trap? But who was targeting him? The first person Chun Zhao thought of was Mollisman. But on second thought, it didn't seem right. He hadn't interacted with that guy much. But with his shrewdness and cunning, he wouldn't do something like this. He wouldn't get anything out of scheming against Chun Zhao. Never mind. I won't think about who did it. I'll find Basarko first. Chun Zhao was confused. How had Basarko escaped last night? He checked the surroundings and didn't find anyone alive. But now, there was someone who should have escaped. Chun Zhao couldn't accept this. If it was a small fry, Chun Zhao wouldn't care. But the culprit was alive. Chun Zhao couldn't accept this. The police station's detention room wasn't small. There were dozens of cells. There were many people here too. Wearing Spider-Man's mask, Chun Zhao strolled through the detention room and checked every cell. Basarko, are you there? Basarko, which room are you in? I'm here to save you. Soon, Chun Zhao found Basarko's cell. Right now, Basarko was hiding under the bed, shivering. Found you, Mr. Basarko. Chun Zhao stood outside the cell and looked at the shivering Basarko. I've already hidden here. Why aren't you willing to let me go?
Why?
Because I hate you. It's such a simple reason. Don't you understand? Don't move. At the end of the corridor, Bolton pointed his gun at Chun Zhao in the darkness. There was no light here, but Bolton could vaguely see Chun Zhao's figure. The figure looked familiar. For some reason, Bolton thought of Chun Zhao immediately. It was clearly impossible. When it happened at the police station, Chun Zhao was on the other side. He couldn't have come here. Chun Zhao glanced at Bolton and then pulled open the metal bars with brute force.
Bang!
Bolton fired, but no matter how good he was, he couldn't hit Chun Zhao. The bullet only created a spark. Chun Zhao had already walked into the cell. Then he heard Basarko scream. I beg you, let me go. I won't dare anymore. You devil. Even if I fall into hell, I won't let you go. Even if you fall into hell, you can't beat me. Chun Zhao swung his hand, and one of Basako's arms flew off. Fresh blood splattered all over the wall. Drawing a bright red arc, Bolton rushed to the door and pointed his gun at Chun Zhao's back again. I'm warning you one last time. Don't move. Chun Zhao didn't care about Bolton's warning at all. He lifted another hand and broke Basako's other arm. Bang! Bolton didn't hesitate this time. He fired at Chun Zhao's back. But Chun Zhao didn't react. I'm going to turn into a demon. I'm going to take revenge on you, you damn Asian. Asian? Bolton revealed a bewildered expression. Could it be a coincidence? Chun Zhao didn't want Basako to continue. If he did, his painstakingly hidden plan would fail. Chun Zhao grabbed Basako's mouth and crushed his jaw. Shua, Chun Zhao pulled with both hands, and Basako was torn in half. Seeing this, Bolton was also shocked. It was the first time he'd seen someone tear someone in half. One had to know that pulling an adult in half required at least 2,000 kilograms of strength. Because human flesh and skin were very tough, it was very difficult to break, especially from the abdomen. Don't move. Bolton held his gun, but his hands were already soaked in cold sweat. This person was too terrifying. His gun was completely ineffective against him. If you move again, I'll hit your head. But just then, Chun Zhao suddenly charged at Bolton. Bang! Bolton was sent flying, but the impact wasn't as high as expected. Bolton quickly climbed up and chased after Chun Zhao. He passed through the police station. Due to the power outage, there was no one inside. Chun Zhao broke the window and jumped out. Bolton chased to the window and saw Chun Zhao jump onto the roof of a police car. He glanced at the height. It was less than 3 meters. He could do it too. Bolton also jumped out, but he clearly wasn't as stable as Chun Zhao. When he jumped onto the road, he still sprained his ankle. He watched as Chun Zhao disappeared at the end of the road. Bolton looked around, as if he was looking for something. Finally, he saw Chun Zhao's car. Bolton limped toward Chun Zhao's car. Then he stuck his head out to look at Chun Zhao's car. Suddenly, Chun Zhao's face appeared in the glass window.
Ah.
Bolton was shocked. Mr. Bolton, what are you doing? Mr. Chun, you're here? Of course I'm here. My car's here. Where else can I go? Won't you leave the smell of smoke in the car if you smoke in it? Bolton realized that there seemed to be some smoke in the car. Especially after Chun Zhao opened the window, the smoke would come out. Has this guy been smoking in the car all this time? It's a bit windy outside. My girlfriend won't be using the car until tomorrow. One night is enough for the smell to dissipate. Don't underestimate a pregnant woman's sense of smell. When my wife was pregnant, she basically evolved into another creature. Do you want to sit and rest? I think you sprained your ankle. I can help you reattach it. Give me a cigarette while you're at it. Chun Zhao quite admired Bolton. He'd sprained his ankle, but still chatted with him expressionlessly to test him. Chun Zhao knew that Bolton was definitely suspicious of him. However, he definitely would know how fast Chun Zhao was. Crack! Chun Zhao helped Bolton straighten his ankle. You're fine, but don't jump from such a high place next time, even if there's a car below. Did you see that? Of course.
It was so loud.
How could I not hear it? Who were you chasing? Spider-Man? He's not a superhero. He's a butcher, a homicidal maniac. Where's your colleague? How come you're the only one in the police station? I don't know. Just then, the lights in the police station lit up. Bolton also finished his cigarette. Okay, I have to go to work.
Bye. Bye.
Chun Zhao looked in the direction of the police station. He'd completely destroyed the electric box. He didn't expect the police to repair it in less than 10 minutes. They were really efficient. Just then, Chun Zhao suddenly felt a very uncomfortable aura emanating from the police station. Chapter 1175. At this moment, a Rolls-Royce limousine stopped. A few strange people got out. One of them was the old woman who'd harassed Chun Zhao today. When Rococo saw Chun Zhao smoking outside the car, her eyes lit up. Hey, handsome! Chun Zhao immediately stopped Bolton, who was about to go to the police station. Mr. Bolton, this woman harassed me today. Seeing Chun Zhao's fearful expression, Bolton suddenly found it funny. Her? Did he harass you? Bolton was suspicious of Chen Zhao's words. Handsome, don't say that. I just want to have a romantic relationship with you. Rococo looked at Chen Zhao seriously. Chen Zhao's expression was lifeless. Bolton believed her. Even he got goosebumps when he heard this. The words spoken by an old woman who had one foot in the coffin were really lethal. It wasn't that people didn't respect women or the elderly. It was just an instinctive reaction. For example, Chen Zhao and right often joked, but it was just a joke. But it was just a joke. Right wouldn't really want to sleep with her grandson and great-grandson's friends. So, their jokes would seem natural. But Chen Zhao really saw desire in the old woman's eyes. Rococo. Baisa couldn't watch anymore. She walked up to Chen Zhao. Sir, I apologize for her words. Chen Zhao's smile was a bit forced. He really didn't want to interact with Rococo anymore. Handsome, can you give me your phone number? No, I don't know you. Chen Zhao retreated in fear. Rococo, don't forget what we're here for, Baisa scolded. Fine, fine. Rococo shrugged helplessly and looked at Chen Zhao. Handsome, I'll go find you when we get back to the hotel. Oh, you live downstairs, right? Bolton looked at the people in front of him and realized that there were 4 young men beside the 2 old women. All 4 of them had blonde hair, handsome looks, and a strong and tall figure. He couldn't help but suspect that they weren't hired by the 2 women. Why were the 4 men carrying swords? But the swords in their hands were pretty. They were probably for decoration. Are you a police officer here? Arthur asked as he approached Bolton. Yes, how can I help you? At this time, Arthur took out an ID. We are from the MI6. MI6 was Britain's MI6. As the staunchest ally of the UA, the British MI6 and the UA CIA also had a very deep cooperation. Both sides had the right to operate in the other's territory. Of course, this was after reporting to the enemy's intelligence department. Bolton was puzzled. The British MI6? Why were they looking for him? Chen Zhao's eyes also flashed as he looked at the people before him. Not to mention the 2 old women, these 4 people also seemed to be exuding magic power. The exquisite swords in their hands seemed to be magic tools as well. We need to see those charred bodies. Burnt corpses? Are you talking about case FB 1244? That's right. Arthur nodded. We've already received permission from the CIB. We've received reliable information that the murderer in this case may be carrying out some unknown evil plan. What evil plans? Bolton asked. Chen Zhao rubbed his nose. He was just killing people to vent his anger. Was this an evil plan? Were they mistaken about something? You don't need to know. We need to see those corpses now. Is it some kind of cult rituals? Bolton asked. Everyone looked at Bolton in surprise. You know, I knew it. It really is a cult ritual. Is it to summon some demon? Bolton said, I've seen a file before. 14 years ago, there was a case of a cult killing people and sacrificing them to the so-called devil in New York. It must be the same thing this time. Are you guys taking the corpses somewhere? Arthur shook his head. No, we're not taking them anywhere. We just want to guard the corpses and make sure that Zhou Qian's body won't be stolen. If the murderer appears, we'll subdue him. I think you're too late, Bolton said. Just now, the murderer killed someone in the police station again. After that, he escaped. Rococo, Baisa, and the 4 Guardian Knights heard Bolton's words and their expressions changed. You're saying that the murderer broke into the police station, killed someone, and then left? Yes, Bolton explained. The murderer destroyed the station's electricity first, and then broke in. He wanted to find an excuse for his and his colleagues' negligence. Oh no, take us to see the corpses. What does this have to do with the evil ritual you mentioned? It didn't matter before, but now it's very important. I still don't understand. The murderer wants to create an evil creature called the Thousand-Faced Demon Spirit. Are you kidding? Bolton clearly didn't believe it. Even Chen Zhao thought that Arthur was joking. He was the person in question, and the mastermind didn't even know. I'm not kidding. The Thousand-Faced Demon Spirit needs a large number of sinful souls. It uses cruel torture to magnify their resentment before death by 100 times. Then, it burns them to death with evil flames. In the end, All the sinful souls will be reborn in the flames of hell and forged into one. This kind of evil creature has appeared more than once in history. Are you really from MI6? Are you scammers? Or maybe he just came out of a mental hospital. Arthur suddenly pulled out his sword, but he didn't slash at Bolton. Instead, he slashed at a nearby car. The blade of the sword flashed past, and the body of the car was cut open. Arthur looked at Bolton, who couldn't close his mouth. Do you think the people from the mental hospital have this ability? Sir, you cut my car. Chun Zhao was speechless. If you wanted to do an experiment, shouldn't you consider other people's feelings? You're still here? Arthur asked despite knowing the answer. Chun Zhao was depressed. I've been standing here the whole time. Is what you said true? Bolton asked in disbelief. Do you still think I'm joking? Hey, don't ignore me. Arthur glanced at Chun Zhao, and then at the car he'd cut open. You'll receive a check for compensation tomorrow.
Fine.
Handsome, if you're willing to spend a night with me, I can give you a Porsche. Rococo's eyes lit up. Chapter 1176. In fact, Rococo's words had already involved sexual harassment, and she'd said it in front of a police officer. But Bolton also had a headache. Mr. Arthur, can you restrain this lady? Arthur was even more annoyed now. I want to restrain her, but I need to have that ability too. Lady, if you harass me again, I'll really sue you. I'm not joking. This definitely wasn't a pleasant process. It was very instinctive. Joking and being serious were two different things. She could choose either, as long as it didn't affect others. Chun Zhao turned to leave, but he could vaguely feel that something was brewing in the police station. He didn't go far. Instead, he found a rooftop of a nearby building and went to the police station 1 kilometer away. Bolton entered the police station and suddenly realized that the old officer on duty at the front desk had fallen asleep on the table. The entire station was silent. Bolton didn't wake the old officer up. After all, everyone was tired at night. Normal people would rest for a while, and so would the police. But when Bolton brought everyone into the station, he realized that everyone in the office had fainted on the ground or on the table. Bolton's expression changed drastically. He quickly went up to check. Arthur and the others also checked the officers. They inhaled a lot of paralyzing powder, Arthur said after checking. Their lives aren't in danger. Only then did Bolton understand why there was no movement in the office when he'd been chasing the murderer in the dark. He'd thought that his colleagues had all gone out, but it turned out that they'd fainted. But if they'd all fainted, who'd fix the electricity? How long will they wake up? They'll wake up after they've slept enough, Arthur said. They were drugged by the murder, right? Bolton asked. No, Rococo said. I remember the smell of the paralyzing powder in the air. It's Sibylla. Her? She dares to appear here? Bisis said in surprise. As expected of my daughter, Rococo said proudly. Her thoughts are exactly the same as mine. She also wants the 1,000-faced demon spirit for herself. Haha. I don't understand. What's there to be proud of? You're both crazy. Take us to the underground parking lot, Rococo said. Your daughter? What does your daughter have to do with the murder? It shouldn't be a problem. She doesn't have the ability to kill that many people. Rococo knew Sibylla too well. Take that elevator down. Rococo came to the elevator and looked at it. Arthur, remove the trap on the elevator. Arthur looked at Rococo. She could obviously get rid of it herself, so why waste her magic power? However, Arthur still obeyed Rococo's orders. He drew his exquisite sword and stabbed it into the elevator. Great Ancestor's spirit, please sweep away the evil ahead for me. A gust of air gushed out from the crack of the elevator door, and Bolton almost lost his balance. Fortunately, the other knight supported Bolton's back with one hand. We can go down now, Mr. Policeman. Do you want to go down with us? Of course, this is where I work. But now, there are outsiders causing trouble here. How can I sit back and do nothing? Maybe the situation down there isn't as bad as you think. It's okay, I'm already mentally prepared. Everyone entered the elevator and descended to the underground parking lot. When Bolton got out of the elevator, he saw 4 people in front of the burnt truck. Sibylla, Mahage, Faisha, and X9 also saw Lakoko and the others. There were also several cars that had been dismantled around them. Bolton was confused. What were they doing here? X9 was about to make a move, but Cybora stopped X9 from doing so. "Continue to repair the truck and leave the rest to us," Sibylla said. Sibylla stepped forward and looked at Lakoko. "Mom, I'm so happy to see you again." Lakoko strolled forward. "I'm not happy, Sibylla. You should activate your magic and escape immediately. You should know better than anyone that you can't beat me in any way other than running away." "Mom, I'm known as the #1 witch in England. You'll suffer if you look down on me like this." Sibylla was not afraid at all. Lakoko stared at Sibylla. "I haven't seen you for more than 10 years. Have you become so arrogant? Don't move. You have the right to remain silent. Whatever you say now will be used as evidence in a court of law." Bolton still followed the procedure and raised his gun at Sibylla and the others. Even though he knew in his heart that his words were nonsense to these people, he didn't care. "Lakoko, hurry up. Don't waste time," Bisa urged. She respected Lakoko enough, so she didn't interfere. Of course, she also believed that Lakoko would not show mercy, even if the other party was her daughter. But Lakoko had always been a very controlling person. Sibylla had also inherited Lakoko's personality. Therefore, the mother and daughter were destined to be unhappy. 2 people who were both strong and controlling couldn't be a family. This was well exemplified by Lakoko and Sibylla. Lakoko was a little helpless. She set up a distortion barrier in front of us. "I need 3 minutes to disintegrate it." Bisa was also very helpless when she heard about the distortion barrier. Sibylla was the only person in the world who knew how to use transmission magic, which was also known as spatial magic. The distortion barrier was currently the most powerful defensive spell known to the world. "Mom, you're really too old. 3 minutes, you actually need 3 minutes to disintegrate my magic. I'm really disappointed. 15 years ago, you only needed 1 minute to disintegrate it, but now you need 3. Actually, Lakoko did not weaken in the past 15 years. Instead, she became stronger. It was just that her improvement was not as great as Sibyllla's. "You said I'm old?" Lakoko instantly flew into a rage. She raised her arm and opened her withered palm. Then, her palm slowly began to shrink. The distortion barrier that separated them slowly began to collapse. Seeing her mother's power, Sibyllla's expression instantly turned ugly. She had never underestimated her mother's strength. But because of her words, her mother directly used her destruction magic without hesitation. Just like how Sibylla mastered the unique spatial magic, as her mother, Lakoko also mastered the unique destruction magic. Her title as the #1 witch in England was far inferior to Lakoko's title as the Great Witch. Her mother was the witch that people feared. Chapter 1177. What was destruction magic? It was magic that could destroy any substance. Even if it was a plane in front of Luokoko, as long as she had enough time, she could destroy it. Destructive magic was a branch of alchemy magic. Alchemy magic usually broke down a certain substance and then reassembled it. On the other hand, destruction magic made the process of decomposition even more pure. There were many alchemists in the world, but there was only one person who could use destructive magic. Even magic could be destroyed. That was the scariest thing about Rococo. Apart from living creatures, any substance or magic could be destroyed. Sibylla turned to look at the truck. X9 called out, "Okay, we can go now." He had been repairing the truck for a long time. He had superb repair skills. Many parts that required mechanical repair, he could do it himself. "Goodbye, Mom." Sibylla chuckled. But at that moment, X9 seemed to be attacked and was ejected. Charred faces could be seen on the back of the truck. Everyone's expression changed. Even Sibylla was shocked. Damn it! Why did these corpses change in a place like this? This was the police station. There was an air of justice here. In the words of the people, it was awe-inspiring righteousness. When Sibylla snuck in here, he only drugged the people in the police station. He didn't start a massacre here because he wanted to use the aura of justice to suppress these resentful corpses. Suddenly, Sibylla saw blood and flesh seeping through the top of the truck. "Teacher, look." Mahage pointed at the ceiling. Sibylla saw a mass of flesh wriggling like a slug. The blood was dripping from it. The mass of flesh exuded a thick stench of blood and hatred. This person had died not long ago, but his hatred had already spread throughout the underground parking lot. But this was a police station. How could there be a dead person like this? The piece of flesh fell onto the truck and began to merge with it. "Kill, kill, kill. I'm going to kill everyone. Everyone must die." The thousand-faced demon spirit began to show its true form. A leading evil spirit fused with the corpses. The twisted soul and hatred merged into one. Sibylla looked at Rococo and the others who were about to destroy the distorted barrier. "We're in trouble." Bice's expression was solemn. The worst-case scenario had finally happened. The Thousand Faces demon spirit was really born. The 4 guardian knights drew their swords at the same time and stood beside Rococo and Bice. "Teacher, what should we do?" "Don't make the first move. Let the people from the Magic Palace deal with the thousand-faced demon spirit." The people of the Magic Palace thought the same. The aura emitted by the Thousand Faces demon spirit made everyone feel uncomfortable. "Don't make the first move. Let the thousand-faced demon spirit and Sibylla fight first." Rococo wasn't stupid. Normally, Rococo didn't have the wisdom and calmness that an 85-year-old person should have, but when she really had to face a serious situation, her mind was clearer than anyone else's. But at that moment, the thousand-faced demon spirit suddenly began to transform. It looked like a transformer, but it looked more like a machine than a twisted monster. It was leaning on the burnt truck, but it was on top of it, turning into a big black truck. It was as if it had rushed out of hell, deep, dark, and full of destruction. The Thousand Faces demon spirit first attacked X9, who was closest to it. The huge body of the Thousand Faces demon spirit slammed into X9, and X9 was sent flying. X9 couldn't stand up after such a collision. Although its recovery rate was much higher than that of ordinary people, it still needed time to recover. "That man isn't ordinary either," Arthur said. At that moment, the body of the Thousand Faces demon spirit suddenly exploded. X9 threw a grenade at it when it was hit. However, the impact of such an explosion was useless against the Thousand Faces demon spirit. The Thousand Faces demon spirit continued to charge toward the people of the Magic Palace. "Filthy thing." Rococo reached out her hand. In an instant, the front of the truck that the Thousand Faces demon spirit transformed into shattered without warning. Sibylla looked at Rococo's attack and thought to himself that his mother's strength had improved too much. Bice narrowed her eyes and looked at the Thousand Faces demon spirit. Just then, she noticed that the Thousand Faces demon spirit covering the truck was beginning to fade. The black flesh and blood were like mucus, constantly falling off the truck. Dead? Impossible. According to the records, the thousand-faced demon spirit was very difficult to kill. Its flesh would constantly recover unless it was thrown into the magma to continuously consume the power in its flesh. Although Rococo's destructive magic was powerful, it would never be able to kill the Thousand Faces demon spirit so easily. To be honest, when the 2 great witches stood together, there was almost no threat that they couldn't deal with. Even if it was the Thousand Faces demon spirit, they were confident that they could deal with it. Something's wrong. Bice suddenly noticed that the black flesh and blood were gathering around X9 and were seeping into X9's body. Finally, X9 completely absorbed all the black flesh and blood, but his appearance didn't seem to change at all. However, the aura around him was completely different. The unprecedented evil and twisted smile made people shudder. He was no longer X9 but the Thousand Faces demon spirit. How is that possible? How can a human bear the resentment of the Thousand Faces demon spirit? Bice frowned. That person isn't an ordinary person. His aura is very strange. Maybe it's because of that strange thing that he can bear the resentment of the Thousand Faces demon spirit. The four Guardian Knights shouted at the same time and rushed toward X9. X9 stood still and let the four swords cut into his body. The blades sank into X9's skin, but they couldn't cut any deeper. X9 swung his fist and broke the blade of a Guardian Knight in an instant. At the same time, his fist landed on the Guardian Knight's body. Uft! The Guardian Knight was sent flying and fell to the ground.
Danu.
All of you back off, you're no match for him, Luo Coco growled. Although the remaining three Guardian Knights were unwilling, they still pulled out their swords and retreated. X9 looked at Luo Coco and then at Baisa. He instinctively felt that these two were not easy to deal with, so he decisively turned around and left. Sibylla was frowning. The fusion between X9 and the Thousand Faces demon spirit was also beyond her expectations. And she knew more about X9's origin than anyone else. Originally, the Thousand Faces demon spirit had no consciousness, only instinct. Chapter 1178. A monster without intelligence could only be called a beast. But if it was a very smart beast, even smarter than a normal person, then it wouldn't be a beast anymore. Right now, the demonized X9 was looking around. Although the demon spirit had fused with X9, the demon spirit's hatred was still dominant. X9's self-awareness was actually very weak. It was created to obey. Nothing was easier to control than a puppet. On the contrary, the more violent demon spirit had a more complete self-awareness. The demon spirit's consciousness was revenge against that man. Sibylla and Lakoko realized that the demon spirit wasn't hostile towards them. At least, the demon spirit's attention wasn't on them. The thousand-faced demon spirit observed its surroundings, sweeping its gaze across every corner. Are you here? Asian, I know you're here.
Come out.
Let's settle our scores. The demon spirit roared.
Come out.
Who was he talking to? After a while, a figure appeared at the entrance of the underground parking lot. He was wearing a Spider-Man mask. Bolton's pupils constricted. This person hadn't left? Lakoko squinted at the voice and suddenly realized. It's you, handsome Asian. Ms. Lakoko, you know him? Isn't he that Chinese? Chinese? Mr. Chen? Bolton asked in surprise. Hearing Lakoko's words, Chen Zhao knew that he couldn't hide it anymore. He could only take off the mask and reveal his true appearance. It's really you, Mr. Chen. Bolton's face was filled with disbelief. He didn't expect the killer to be Chen Zhao. You're not dead? Impossible. I saw your head explode with my own eyes. Faisha, Cybora, and Mahage all had looks of disbelief on their faces. So you guys killed me just now? Chen Zhao looked at Sibylla and the other two. Chen Zhao had made many guesses before. Now he finally had an answer. Very good. Now we can settle our old and new grudges. If we can kill you once, we can kill you again. Fei Sha sneered at Chen Zhao. Handsome, I didn't expect you to be the culprit behind the creation of the Thousand Faces demon spirit. You deceived my feelings, and now you will use your death to atone for your sins. Luo Coco felt that she had been deceived. She had been tricked by Chen Zhao's fake kindness, so she was furious. Mahage looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. She only had 2 impressions of him. The first time was outside the cemetery, with Dell, who had a big mouth. The second time was not long ago, when Chen Zhao was shot to death. To be honest, she really didn't think that Chen Zhao was the mastermind behind all this. Looks like I have to deal with a lot of people today. But can you guys really win? The demon spirit couldn't care less. It charged at Chen Zhao first. Ever since Chen Zhao appeared, he had become extremely violent. He existed to kill Chen Zhao. The thousand-faced demon spirit's irresistible attacks made people feel pressured. Chen Zhao also threw a punch to meet the attack. Amidst the dull explosion, the Thousand Faces demon spirit was sent flying. Under everyone's gaze, the demon spirit flew dozens of meters away and smashed into the wall of the underground parking lot. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. They had seen how terrifying the thousand-faced demon spirit was. However, in front of this man, she became weak and fragile. Chen Zhao's expression was calm. Trash. Since I created you, Do you think you can resist me? However, the demon spirit seemed to be more durable. After taking Chen Zhao's punch, its right arm was deformed, but it recovered. Fei Xia was also the impulsive type. She also attacked Chen Zhao. The surrounding cars flew toward Chen Zhao at the same time. However, before they could touch Chen Zhao, they were cut into pieces by his dark lava. Imagine if a few cars were cut into pieces in midair. What would that look like? What spell is this? Hey, handsome, have a taste of my magic. Luo Coco raised her palms. A wave of magic shot toward Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao frowned. He felt a threat from the two magic powers. He couldn't take it. Chen Zhao raised his right arm. The mouth of gluttony opened and devoured the two waves of magic. Then, it merged into a ball of magic and returned.
Dodge.
Luo Coco exclaimed. When the ball of magic was reflected back, it was several times more powerful. Everyone in the magic palace immediately dodged. The ball of magic couldn't be seen, but it was very terrifying. All the cars along the way were pierced. The penetrative power was too strong. Even Chen Zhao found it scary. If those two waves of magical power had fallen on his body, then his body would have likely been pierced through. Chen Zhao looked at Luo Coco. He didn't expect the old woman to be so strong. In the past, the opponents Chen Zhao had encountered were very strong, but they couldn't hurt him. Therefore, Chen Zhao was almost undefeatable. This old woman was definitely not the strongest opponent Chen Zhao had encountered. But Luo Coco could threaten Chen Zhao's life. However, Luo Coco and Misha were also shocked. This man was more troublesome than they'd imagined. At that moment, Sibylla made his move. She was best at sneak attacks. Sibylla appeared behind Chen Zhao and released a tearing spell at the same time. The tearing spell was very destructive. It could tear apart almost any material. However, laceration magic also had a drawback, which was that it was very ineffective against objects or people with magic. When the tearing spell hit Chen Zhao's back, it was blocked by the Qingyi glow and consumed. Chen Zhao punched behind him. Sibylla hurriedly used a distortion barrier to block Chen Zhao's fist. But the distortion barrier had a limit. Under Chen Zhao's attack, it disintegrated instantly. This shocked everyone present. Even Luo Coco couldn't destroy the distortion barrier instantly. But Chen Zhao could. It wasn't the first time Chen Zhao had shattered a distortion barrier, so she was prepared. The moment Chen Zhao shattered the distorted barrier, she activated a transfer spell and escaped from Chen Zhao. Am I that hated? Why does everyone want to be my enemy? Chen Zhao had always felt that he should be the righteous one. But now, he seemed to have become the big boss, the villain. Chen Zhao reflected on himself. No matter how much he thought about it, he didn't seem to have done anything wrong. Then it had to be someone else's fault. Chapter 1179. I hate the feeling of being the target of everyone. Chen Zhao shrugged helplessly. Chen Zhao walked to the center. Walking to the center of everyone, the demon roared and charged at Chen Zhao. The purpose of its existence was to take revenge on Chen Zhao. Whether it was its main consciousness or the other consciousnesses in its body, they all had one goal, to kill Chen Zhao. But Chen Zhao caught the demon spirit who had walked right into the trap. He grabbed the demon's neck with one hand and pressed it to the ground. How strong was the thousand-faced demon spirit? Its maximum strength was around 20 tons, but it was being suppressed by Chen Zhao. The ground that Chen Zhao and the demon were standing on had already cracked. The demon's black flesh tried to seep into Chen Zhao's body, just like how it had seeped into and controlled X9. However, X9 didn't have a consciousness, or rather, it had a weak consciousness. That was why X9 could be controlled so easily. But Chen Zhao was different. When he'd reached ultimate transformation, he'd cultivated both ice and fire. The ice had tempered Chen Zhao's consciousness to the point that it was indestructible. What did it mean to be impervious to external evils? It meant that an external will like the thousand-faced demon spirit was unable to shake oneself. So, after the black flesh corroded Chen Zhao's arm, it immediately retreated. The demon couldn't invade Chen Zhao's body at all. Such strong willpower. Lococo's expression was solemn. Both the East and the West were terrified of external evil invading one's true self. Just like in those fantasy novels, what usually defeated them wasn't a powerful enemy, but evil willpower. Chun Zhao grabbed the demon's neck and pulled off its lower jaw, making it unable to close its mouth. Then, dark lava started pouring into the demon's mouth. Chun Zhao casually tossed it onto the ground. The demon's body spasmed on the ground. The atmosphere at the scene suddenly became solemn. Chun Zhao's display of strength made Sibylla and the magic palace feel great pressure. Baisa, stop watching. I probably can't beat this man alone, Lococo said. Baisa was surprised. Lococo, who never liked to lose, had actually asked her for cooperation. Misha took a step forward, her body also emitting a powerful magic power. Arthur's trio was still standing in front of the two demonesses, unwaveringly guarding them. Arthur, the three of you back off. This man is not someone you can face. Arthur's 4 guardian knights were easily defeated by the thousand-faced demon spirit. Now that they were facing someone who could easily defeat the thousand-faced demon spirit, their chances of winning were even lower. Misha opened her arms, and a bright light appeared behind her. An unbelievable figure appeared behind Baisa. Even Chun Zhao was filled with shock. It was an angel with long golden hair, and half of his face was covered by a steel mask. However, half of his face could still be seen. He wore a white robe and held a golden spear in his hand. When Sibylla saw the white angel, he wanted to retreat. She knew the title of Abyssal Great Enchantress, the most famous great enchantress in the Magic Palace. She was very unfamiliar with Humble, Massachusetts. She had no idea what magic system Humble Mass was proficient in. But now she knew. She had never heard of anyone being able to summon angels. Was this the legendary magic? Suddenly, Chun Zhao felt immense pressure. It wasn't physical but mental. Misha, be careful. Don't release the power of rank indiscriminately. Power of rank? What kind of magic was this? Chun Zhao looked at the white angel with seriousness in his eyes. Chun Zhao had fought many demons, but he had never fought an angel. To be honest, Chun Zhao didn't know what the result would be either. Suddenly, the angel attacked. He spread his wings and the golden spear in his hand stabbed at Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao lifted heavily and the golden spear deviated from its direction. It's strong and fast, but not threatening, Chun Zhao thought. At the same time, he punched at the angel. His fist landed on the angel's body. However, it was as if his fist had landed on thin air, and he had missed. Physical attacks couldn't hit it? Chun Zhao hated enemies that couldn't use physical attacks the most. More importantly, the angel's physical attacks were still effective. What made Chun Zhao uncomfortable was that the angel was still releasing the power of rank. It was like a dragon suppressing Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao felt uncomfortable all over and couldn't adjust to his best state. Chun Zhao grabbed the tip of the golden spear that was stabbing at him again. The angel couldn't snatch the golden spear away from Chun Zhao. Misha furrowed his brows. This guy was really hard to deal with. Chun Zhao swung the golden spear at the angel. But the golden spear was useless against the angel too. Fuck, this is cheating. Chun Zhao didn't believe it. Physical attacks didn't work? Then there was another way. The dark lava suddenly turned into a blade and swept at the angel. Hiss! The angel wasn't immune to the dark lava and was cut in half. Everyone was shocked, including the Reverend Massachusetts Kill the Angel. The infernal masses magic activated and released an even more powerful magic. Banish. But just then, the angel that had been cut in half suddenly turned into 2 smaller angels. They wrapped around Chun Zhao and lifted him up. The 2 angels pulled Chun Zhao up. Did they want him to hit the ceiling? Chun Zhao was confused. He didn't understand what the 2 angels wanted at all. However, things didn't go as Chun Zhao expected. He didn't hit the ceiling. Instead, he went straight through it. Yes, through it. Chun Zhao didn't even have a point to exert force on. He couldn't use his great power. Chun Zhao was pulled higher and higher. Soon, he was more than 100 meters high. Moreover, the height was still increasing. The 2 angels were very fast. Chun Zhao didn't resist anymore. He let the two angels continue pulling him up. Did they want to pull him up to heaven? If heaven really existed, he wouldn't mind going there to see. Unfortunately, he wasn't going to heaven. He was going to a higher sky. 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, 15,000 meters, 20,000 meters. At the moment, Misha, who was in the underground parking lot, had a serious expression. This guy's vitality is really strong. He's already 20,000 meters in the sky, and he's still not dead. At this height, Chun Zhao could already see the outline of the earth. He could even see the distant and vast ocean. Chapter 1180. By now, Chun Zhao almost couldn't feel gravity anymore. His body became very, very light. Even now, the magic in Chun Zhao's body could take over and allow him to fly freely. Chun Zhao had once deduced that humans could fly because the magic in their bodies had reached a certain quality. Just like a hot air balloon, the quality of the magic changed the density of the body. When the quality of the magic reached this level, humans could break free from the restraints of gravity. No, more accurately, they couldn't break free from gravity. They could float in the air. Until now, human technology had never been able to break free from gravity. What humans have been doing has always been using the principles of aerodynamics to float in the air. According to Chun Zhao's deductions, it should be the same for flying in the ancient records. If he was on the ground, Chun Zhao still couldn't fly. But at this height, the gravitational force was reduced. He could control his body now. But the air here was too thin, and it was too cold at this height. This was the stratosphere. Even some low-altitude satellites couldn't reach Chun Zhao's height. Chun Zhao felt his body start to change again. The golden key was reconstructing his body functions. This was the effect of the golden key. The golden key didn't make Chun Zhao stronger. Instead, it allowed him to adapt to the environment without being killed immediately. Just when Chun Zhao thought the two angels would disappear, the two angels suddenly pulled Chun Zhao down. They were falling too fast. Chun Zhao could feel his clothes igniting from the friction in the air. Chun Zhao didn't resist. Instead, he closed his eyes and started to feel the sky. He couldn't miss such a rare opportunity. The two angels had completely disappeared, and Chun Zhao was in a free fall. Because of the high speed, Chun Zhao was like a shooting star. His body was completely burning. Suddenly, Chun Zhao opened his eyes. He felt it. He caught it. He finally caught that wondrous feeling. The sky was densely covered with countless veined patterns. Sky patterns. The sky was clear. But now, Chun Zhao was less than 100 meters below. Chun Zhao didn't resist. He continued his free fall. Poof! Chun Zhao fell into the sea, creating huge waves. About a minute later, Chun Zhao suddenly broke out of the water. Whoosh! The sky patterns weren't enough. He needed to find a piece of sky pattern and completely fuse with it. This was the true emptiness of heaven and earth. Let yourself become a part of this pattern, a part of the sky. There was no need to go to the sky anymore because once they left the ground, they would be part of the sky. High altitude was empty, low altitude was also empty. As long as he raised his arm, he would be able to see the sky. Chun Zhao enjoyed the magical feeling. The moment Chun Zhao truly touched the patterns in the sky, he had already completed half of the emptiness of heaven and earth. What were the patterns of the sky? Chun Zhao didn't know what these patterns were. However, the spiritual qi in the world spread along the veined patterns. Chun Zhao's heart skipped a beat. The patterns in the sky were like the meridians in the human body. However, these meridians could not be seen by ordinary people. According to this line of thought, the entire world was a huge mana source. The veins of the sky were the meridians around the mana origin, also known as the heavenly veins. If he fused with a portion of the heavenly runes, it would mean that he had seized a portion of the heaven and earth's runes. At the same time, his mana source had been expanded. The size of the heavenly patterns he could fuse with was equivalent to the size of his mana source. For example, if the heavenly pattern he fused had a radius of 10 meters, then the area within 10 meters would become his mana source. It would not be like before, where he would have to restrain the mana in his body. At the same time, if someone came within 10 meters of him, it would be like entering his territory. He could attack more freely. In this territory, it was like his own little world. He could attack and defend as he pleased. The volume of his mana source had increased by more than 10 times, both in terms of its volume and its recovery ability. Chun Zhao started releasing his mana. He wanted to use his own mana to flow into the heavenly pattern as much as possible and then expand the range of the heavenly pattern as much as possible. 10 meters, 20 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters. Chun Zhao's mana had already covered a radius of 50 meters. If he continued to release it, it would not be able to expand any further. 50 meters should be his current limit. No wonder Taoist cultivation had the concept of stealing from the heavens. It turned out that the emptiness of heaven and earth meant stealing from the world. Fuse. Chun Zhao suddenly retracted his mana. The heavenly pattern immediately fused with his mana. Success. Chun Zhao felt that everything within a 50-meter radius was like his limbs. Nothing could hide in this small world. This new sensory experience was too special for Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao's small world was madly absorbing the spiritual qi in the world to fill his mana. Chun Zhao's body slowly rose from the sea. By now, he could already fly into the sky. His body became very light, very, very light. The quality of his mana made his body less dense than air. When Chun Zhao wanted to go higher, he realized that he could not go very high. Still not enough. The small world did not seem to be as smooth as he had imagined. Was it because he had only understood half of it? The emptiness of heaven and earth. He had only understood the part of the sky. If the sky was the meridians of the world, then the earth was the source of mana. One could also think of the earth as a huge internal elixir. The earth essence he had obtained from the big spider might be the substance of the earth's internal elixir. In other words, he had to go deep underground and absorb enough earth essence to truly reach the emptiness of heaven and earth. As Chun Zhao thought about it, he flew across the sea. At the moment, he could fly at a height of around 10 meters. It was not very high. However, his speed was much faster than running on the ground. Bamiza, is that man dead? Bamiza looked into the distance and shook his head. His aura did not disappear. Instead, it became stronger. He reminds me of the old man I saw when I went to China 50 years ago. This aura is exactly the same. Let's go. I can feel danger approaching, Lakoko said. When they left the underground parking lot, they suddenly felt a huge pressure from the distance. Bamiza's gaze turned serious. He's here. Right now, Chun Zhao was looking down at Misha and Rococo on the road. Chapter 1181. Ms. Lakoko, Ms. Baisa, please leave first. We'll stop him. The three knights unsheathed their swords and pointed them at Chun Zhao. Go back, Baisa said calmly. You don't have to do anything. Don't say that I don't respect the old. You asked for it. You attacked me first, Chun Zhao said. Baisa looked at Chun Zhao. You're from China's Mao Mountain? No, Chun Zhao said indifferently. It's not a good idea to build a relationship right now. Also, I don't think there's a need for us to keep talking. Baisa said, crossing her fingers. Suddenly, Chun Zhao realized that he couldn't move his body. Immediately, 4 angels appeared around Chun Zhao. Each angel held a golden spear and pointed it at Chun Zhao. Do you think the same move will work on me? Chun Zhao tried to break free, but he couldn't. Just then, the 4 angels stabbed their golden spears at Chun Zhao. The feeling of his skin being pierced was very uncomfortable. Chun Zhao struggled even more fiercely. Baisa's hands also trembled from Chun Zhao's struggle. Baisa quickly changed her hand gestures. Pointing 2 fingers at Chun Zhao, she yelled, seal. Silver-white eggshells appeared around him. They looked very unreal, as if they were made of some kind of light particles. The eggshells started to cover Chun Zhao. Like a jigsaw puzzle, they kept assembling. Chun Zhao didn't plan on waiting for death. He finally used his full strength. His body shook, and the 4 angels became illusory. Chun Zhao punched through their eggshell, and Baisa spat out a mouthful of blood. Let's go before he escapes, Bisa said. Lakoko looked back at Chen Zhao. Although Chen Zhao was covered by a sealing spell, Bisa's spell couldn't be completed. Even you can't seal this guy. Lakoko didn't want to continue fighting and quickly left the scene. Chen Zhao broke free from the seal and touched the part of his body that had been pierced. Chen Zhao was in a bad mood. He was inexplicably attacked and inexplicably almost sealed by someone. The most important thing was that these strange enemies had actually escaped. Chen Zhao entered the underground parking lot. By then, Sibylla and the others had already left. Only the thousand-faced demon spirit was still lying on the ground. Because it had been corroded by the dark lava, its consciousness was about to be erased. Needless to say, the thousand-faced demon spirit's consciousness was very strong. Its consciousness was resentment toward Chen Zhao. But now he was going to be controlled by Chen Zhao, so his resistance was even stronger. Moreover, it wasn't just a single consciousness, but hundreds of hatred and resentment. Therefore, it was very troublesome for the dark lava to completely erase the thousand-faced demon spirit's consciousness. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He sent the demon spirit into the dark lava and let it slowly erase its consciousness. When Chen Zhao returned to the hotel, the people upstairs had already left. Chen Zhao didn't expect them to wait for death. Actually, Chen Zhao had already calmed down. Anger is a momentary thing. Anger and hatred are not the same. Basako had sent people to attack Feilai and Zhirlin, so Chen Zhao hated Basako. This hatred wouldn't disappear. Rococo and the others attacking him infuriated Chen Zhao. Anger only lasted for a moment. After that, the feeling of anger would gradually decrease. Feilai, go watch Tiger's match. As Chen Zhao's disciple, Chen Zhao was obviously very concerned about Tiger's match. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't doubt Tiger's victory at all. Tiger was much stronger than professional fighters, let alone amateurs. In the past few days, Tiger had KO'd his opponents consecutively and entered the finals like he was invincible. Today's match was the finals. In today's match, Tiger's opponent was also a professional boxer. However, he could only be considered a rookie. Compared to Tiger, who'd won a WBA championship belt right after his debut, he really couldn't be compared. Moreover, Tiger's performance in the past few days was indeed unstoppable. Of course, this was a big sports competition. Even the competition was at the amateur level. Even if Tiger won, he wouldn't gain any glory. So, Tiger was still more restrained during the match. Even if he KO'd his opponent, he would do his best not to hurt his opponent's career. Tiger had suffered a fatal blow before, so he knew very well how serious professional injuries were for a boxer. Now, Tiger was more mature. He saw himself as a senior. Even when he came to the competition, he had the mentality of teaching a junior. So, the matches were relatively easy. The opponents he KO'd would also hug him or take pictures with him after the match. For many of them, Tiger was their idol. Chen Zhao and Feilai carried Zhirlin to the boxing gym at the same time. Chen Zhao found Tiger, who was warming up. "Hi, Tiger," Feilai greeted him. Tiger would occasionally freeload at their place, so they were quite familiar with each other. "Hello, Miss Feilai." "Tiger, don't go easy later. Beat your opponent down. Don't listen to Feilai," Chen Zhao quickly said. "Just fight like before." This wasn't a professional match. Tiger already had a clear advantage. He didn't have to kill the other contestants. It was like a match between an adult and a kindergartner. It wasn't honorable for an adult to go all out against a child. If it was a professional match, Chen Zhao wouldn't say anything like going easy. He hoped that Tiger would use all his strength. "Mr. Chen, I know. I'm going to fight now." "Okay, go." The match soon started. Tiger indeed didn't go all out. The match dragged on for 4 rounds. In the end, Tiger really went all out. Other than Chen Zhao's words, it was also because of the TV station's request. They wanted Tiger to delay the match. In boxing, KO was what the audience loved to watch. But if every match was KO'd, it would be too boring. It wouldn't be enjoyable. So, the TV station wanted the match to slow down. Chapter 1182. After the competition, Chen Zhao left after exchanging a few words with Tiger. As the leader, Chen Zhao had a lot of things to do. Don't think that everything will be fine after you bring the contestants to the competition. For example, a girl had gone missing yesterday. Chen Zhao and the other coaches had been looking for her in San Diego for an entire day. In the end, they found out that the girl had gone out to play after the competition. However, her phone had fallen into the sea, so they couldn't reach her.
More than 100 students were out there.
It was much more troublesome than Chen Zhao had initially thought. Chen Zhao also understood why schools and teachers would often expel students after they made mistakes, regardless of their future. It was because of the worry and anger they felt when the incident happened. As the leader, Chen Zhao had too many responsibilities. He even had to care about a student who wasn't feeling well. Or, if a student from his school was judged unfairly during the competition, Chen Zhao had to negotiate too. By the way, Fei Lai, how did the pet competition go? Yesterday was just a qualifier. Baressa and I agreed that whoever gets the final championship will win, Fei Lai said. In the qualifiers, we have to make sure that the pets aren't dangerous. For example, someone brought a cougar, and it killed the other person's pet squirrel. Chen Zhao wasn't worried that his pet would go berserk. Who did you bring yesterday? Princess, Fei Lai said. Chen Zhao nodded. Princess seemed to be the most dangerous. But in reality, she was the safest. When will the finals start? 2 more rounds, and then the finals. It's in 5 days. 5 days? There were only 2 days left in the sports competition. They had to leave the day after tomorrow. However, it was impossible for Fei Lai to leave early. Fei Lai had her own reasons. However, Chen Zhao didn't feel at ease leaving her alone in San Diego. It seemed that she had to stay for 2 more days. LA and San Francisco were archenemies. The competitions between them were the most intense, especially the swimming team. Apart from Evely, there was no one else on UCLA's swimming team that could compete. Although she had also participated in the 100m and 200-meter freestyle events, the swimming team hadn't won any other events apart from her. The two sides had a heated debate. UCLA mocked UCSF for not having a single famous player, while UCSF mocked UCLA for only having Evely. Although the 10 branches of the University of California were like one mother, there were many competitive relationships between them. From the resources to the source of students to the sports, it was like a war between 10 countries. Chen Zhao also encountered many provocations. After all, as long as it was a competition between schools, the other schools would attack and provoke each other. Everyone was filled with the smell of gunpowder toward people from other schools. After the student competition, Chen Zhao even ran a 10,000-meter race with the coaches of other schools. In any case, everyone in this competition was trying their best to fight for glory for their school. Even if it wasn't a formal competition, it was just a matter of beating everyone. To be honest, the atmosphere of the sports meet was very strange, but it filled the students and teachers with excitement. In this year's UCLA sports meet, UCLA did very well and won the most medals. He still attended the closing ceremony. The next day, he brought his students back to Los Angeles. After sending the students to school safely, Chen Zhao went straight to San Diego. When Chen Zhao followed Fei Lai to the venue of the pet competition, he saw a huge crowd of protesters. Who are they? Chen Zhao asked in confusion. The protesters organized by the Animal Protection Society. They think that keeping wild animals as pets and even bringing them to the competition is disrespectful to animals. Oh, they're really free. Their perspectives were different, so their way of thinking was different too. Like now, Chen Zhao had a bunch of pets at home. Naturally, Chen Zhao thought that there was nothing wrong with pets. To put it bluntly, they had different standpoints. Of course, the protesters didn't affect the event. They only put up a banner outside and didn't cause any trouble. Little Jerlin sat on Princess's back and looked at the huge crowd excitedly. To be honest, Jerlin sitting on Princess's back still attracted a lot of attention. Hi, everyone. I'm Pick. A man dressed like a cowboy pulled a brown bear to Chen Zhao, Fei Lai, and Princess. When he looked at Princess, his eyes lit up. This guy is really big. Hello. The two got to know each other. Pick was here to talk about training and raising bears with Chen Zhao and Fei Lai. Pick's brown bear was called Lar. It was also really big, weighing around 600 to 700 kilograms. But compared to Princess, it was much smaller. Princess was the largest pet among all the pets participating in the competition this time. This big guy is called Princess, right? I've seen her information before. Are you willing to let her breed with my Lar? Lar finally set his goal. Sorry, Princess has her own family. Unless she's willing, we won't force her to breed with others. Okay? Pick didn't force it.
He couldn't force it anyway.
Plus, Pick also raised bears. It was obvious that he really liked Lar. Therefore, she actually felt that Chen Zhao's answer was a sign of appreciation. As soon as Pick left, Barisa arrived. Beside her was an old man with a goatee. The old man was leading a chimpanzee. You're here too. Barisa looked at Chen Zhao, her eyes full of provocation. Are you here to see how your stupid bear loses? The competition hasn't started yet. Isn't it too early to talk about this? Do you know who it is? Barisa pointed at the chimpanzee. It's called Caesar. It's the same name as the main character in the movie Rise of the Planet of the Apes. According to tests, Caesar has the intelligence of a 10-year-old. How stupid. Our princess has the intelligence of an adult, right, princess? As the saying went, one should not lose in spirit even if they lost in battle. Roar. Princess howled, as if in response to Chen Zhao's words. The old man with a goatee, who came with Barisa, looked at the princess and said, "What an intelligent brown bear. Mr. Rudy, you're my man. How can you speak for someone else?" Chapter 1183. Not long after, the competition began. Jerlin couldn't sit on Princess anymore. Jerlin sitting on Princess's back was very eye-catching. But in principle, it was against the rules. Only one person could follow a pet to prevent multiple commands from affecting the result of the competition. Chen Zhao held Jerlin in the audience seats. Jerlin was very excited. This was the first time she had seen so many strange pets. His mouth didn't stop and he just kept laughing. The competition was actually quite simple. Even the audience seats were temporary. Holding Princess's hand, Fei Lai entered the competition. The audience immediately applauded. Many of the audience loved animals. Princess's special body would naturally attract a lot of attention. The judge explained the rules to Fei Lai and the other contestants. First, they had to pass through obstacles without traction. The pets in the same group as Princess were all medium to large pets. Lar, Bix brown bear, was also in the same group. On the other side of the competition, there was another group for small pets. This was to prevent the large pets from stepping on the small ones. The pets that could participate in the finals all had a certain level of intelligence. However, their intelligence wasn't comprehensive. Sometimes, they might hurt other pets by accident. This competition didn't compete on speed, endurance, or strength. It was based on points. As long as a pet passed all the obstacles in the obstacle course, they would get 10 points. If a pet went around an obstacle, 1 point would be deducted. Before the competition began, all the pet owners talked to their pets. Fei Lai patted Princess's head. Princess, do well later. Oh, don't step on other pets. Fei Lai didn't talk to Princess about the rules at all. She could understand the judge. As for whether Princess could finish the competition, there was no doubt. Under the judge's verbal command, the competition began. Princess swayed her big butt and strolled toward the obstacle course. Some of the other pets were fast, and some were slow. A jaguar took the lead, taking the lead to drill through the first cylinder track and then jumped over the tripod. There was also a pet slower than Princess. It was a tortoise. Following behind the princess, he slowly moved forward. The tortoise's owner was a girl, about 15 or 16 years old. She was very anxious. This competition was very disadvantageous for her pets. There were many obstacles that tortoises couldn't pass. Globe, take your time. There's no rush. If he lost points in the obstacle course, he could only try to catch up in the later events. At this time, Princess had also passed through the cylinder track and arrived in front of the tripod. The tripod was 1 meter high. As long as Princess stood up, she would be able to cross the track without jumping. However, the princess did not go over immediately. Instead, she looked back at the Galapagos tortoise. Roar! The princess called out to the Galapagos tortoise. Just then, the girl beside Phalai grew nervous. What does your pet want? When the girl saw the princess's figure, she was afraid that it would hurt her pet. Phalai smiled at the girl. It's asking your pet if it needs help. The girl's eyes widened. But they are of different races. Are you sure that's what it meant? Of course, the princess is very smart and kind. The Galapagos tortoise stretched its neck and nodded slowly. The princess lifted the Galapagos tortoise and pushed it over the tripod. This scene was seen by the audience, and everyone let out an uproar. No one believed that a bear would actually know how to help others. Moreover, they were of a different race, and in an unnatural state. But with so many pets present, only Princess could help the Galapagos tortoise cross the tripod. The other pets weren't big or strong enough. Only Princess could ignore the 400-kilogram Galapagos tortoise's weight. Princess climbed over the tripod herself. Then, she walked slowly to the next stage with the Galapagos tortoise. They seemed to have become friends. Your bear is really smart, the girl said, but it's not as smart as my Earth globe. As pet owners, everyone present was full of confidence in their pets. With Princess' help, the Galapagos tortoise also completed 10 obstacles. Both it and the Earth globe got full marks. The girl walked up to Princess. Can I take a picture with it? It's called Princess, right?
Yes.
At the end of this group's obstacle course, 3 pets had scored full 10 points. The princess, the Earth globe, and the jaguar that had taken the lead earlier. The other pets more or less went around 1 or 2 obstacles. Some even lost the ability to think halfway. The next round of the competition was about to begin. This time, the contestants had to find 10 coins in a field the size of a basketball court. The time limit was 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes, those who found 10 coins would get 10 points. 1 coin less meant 1 point less. Sister Phalai, can you ask Princess to help the Earth globe? The girl looked at Phalai with watery eyes. This race wasn't friendly to turtles. But this race didn't restrict pets. There were all kinds of pets. It was impossible to take care of every animal. You should ask Princess directly. The girl looked at Princess. She was still a bit afraid of her. Princess, can you help the Earth globe? Roar. The girl looked at Phalai. It said yes. Race start. The judge still gave the order verbally. These kinds of animal races couldn't use guns or electronic bells. Because if he used a gun, or something like that, it was very likely that the animals would be frightened. After the race started, Princess indeed helped the Galapagos tortoise find 10 coins. Then she quickly found 10 coins herself. They were the contestants who finished the race first. But just then, someone else was unhappy. Judge, that's against the rules. They're cheating. The judge glanced at the protesting person and said in a matter-of-fact tone, the rules don't restrict them from helping each other. This race is a test of the pet's intelligence. Helping each other is also a display of intelligence. In fact, the judge was also very surprised by Princess's performance. This wasn't the first time this race was held. The judge had been a judge for many. He'd seen many smart animals. But he'd never seen such an intelligent animal. It actually knew how to help other contestants. 10 minutes later, the judge announced the results. The second round is over, the judge said. Contestants with less than 12 points will lose the right to compete in the third round. Now for the final, intelligence quiz. There were a total of 8 contestants with more than 12 points. The venue was rearranged. In front of each contestant was a table with 4 buttons, A, B, C, and D. Chapter 1184. Each pet had its own platform. Some pets were placed directly on the platform. Of course, some platforms were shorter and more suitable for adjustment. Boris's chimpanzee was also in the finals. It was sitting on the platform right now. Then, let's start. The judge took the card and started reading the questions. First question, a little girl sleeps at 9 every night and sleeps for 9 hours. What time does she wake up the next day? A at 5, B at 6, C at 7, B at 8. This was a math question, and it was different from the usual animal math questions, which were questions that were written using icons. This was a question that was written using spoken English. Apart from testing the pet's understanding of human language, it also tested their logical calculation. With this question, more than half of the 8 contestants were eliminated. Only 3 pets could answer: Princess, Globe, and Caesar the chimpanzee. One question was enough to tell the difference between an ordinary pet and a real psychic pet. Animals had language too, but it was simpler. For example, dogs didn't use language to chat. Instead, they used it to express simple intentions and emotions. For example, eating, playing, sleeping, territory, happiness, sadness, and so on. Under normal circumstances, dogs or other animals couldn't understand the logic of human language. It wasn't just because they couldn't make complex sounds like humans, but also because they couldn't understand the logic of human language. They could barely understand 1 or 2 words. The simplest examples were sitting down and shaking hands. But if it was a sentence, it was hard to judge and understand. Of course, there was another type of animal, like genetic mutation. There were also geniuses among animals. There are individual cases of intelligent geniuses in certain species. They could understand longer sentences and even completely understand the meaning and logic of human language. Chun Zhao watched the competition with Jerlin in his arms. He wasn't surprised by Princess's performance at all. He wasn't surprised by Caesar's performance either, because chimpanzees were the only species with high intelligence in the animal kingdom. Especially trained chimpanzees, their intelligence could even reach the level of an 8-year-old human child. Chimpanzees were also the only primate species that had the emotion of shame. In the research of zoologists, they'd found that regret was a relatively advanced emotion. That was because repentance required logical thinking. So, Caesar's reaction wasn't out of Chun Zhao's expectations. But the elephant-tortoise performance surprised him. It was rare to hear of turtles with super high intelligence. Holding his phone, Chun Zhao looked up the types of globes. The globe should be the Galapagos tortoise, the largest tortoise on Earth. Their diet is vegetarian, and they are very docile. Adult males weigh between 280 and 330 kilograms, with the heaviest possibly exceeding 400 kilograms. The Galapagos tortoises also had an extremely long lifespan. If there were no natural or man-made disasters, they could live for more than 200 years. Due to their size, they also had a brain capacity that other turtles did not have. Therefore, in terms of intelligence, it was indeed smarter than other medium-sized and small turtles. However, it was rare to hear that they had intelligence close to that of chimpanzees. The second question, the 3 pets answered correctly again. Third question, fourth question, fifth question, with the princess's wisdom, she could easily answer some common-sense questions. These questions posed no difficulty to it. However, when it came to Caesar and the globe, he began to hesitate. The only way to stump the princess was to ask some complicated math questions. If the questions were all common sense, Princess could play for an entire afternoon. However, this was a pet quiz, not a math test, so he couldn't give them math questions with more than 2 digits. Princess's ability to add, subtract, multiply, and divide was probably better than most Americans. Finally, at the 12th question, Caesar could not answer. Caesar showed a very human-like expression of disappointment and even looked at Rudy in shame. Now, only the competition between Princess and the globe was left. The judge looked at the 2 extremely smart pets. These 2 species were also frequent participants in previous pet competitions. However, they were not frequent competitors in the finals. In fact, they had never been there before. Now, it had become a showdown between the 2 of them. But after 30 questions, the judge had finished all the questions in his card, and there was still no winner between Princess and the globe. The audience was in disbelief. The judge was also troubled. This was something that had never happened before. These 2 pets were really too smart. After discussing with the organizer, The judge found Phalai and the owner of the globe to discuss. There was no point in continuing like this. Because the two pets could answer all 30 questions, it meant that their understanding of common sense had reached or was close to that of a normal person. So, there was no winner even if they kept asking. In the end, the result of the discussion was to come up with the last question. Let Princess and the globe arrange the 26 letters in their own way. The result of this over time was Princess's victory. Because Princess really did know the 26 letters. Coincidentally, she did. But the globe only arranged 6 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, and couldn't arrange anything after that. In the end, Princess became the champion of this year's pet competition. Other than the $50,000 prize, there was also a medal with the word wisdom engraved on it. The girl was quite happy that the globe was the runner-up. Although it didn't win, she thought it was because it was a bit unlucky. If the final question segment had continued, the globe might not have lost. After the competition ended, many spectators fought to take a photo with the princess and the globe. They were pretty much the smartest animals that humans could imagine. Especially Princess' stunning performance, she won many people's attention. Someone even asked Phalai to buy Princess. Of course, no one said anything. Princess was not for sale. Chun Zhao and Phalai brought Princess. Jerlin sat on Princess' back again and went to find Barisa. Miss Barisa, looks like you lost. Oh, what's this chimpanzee called? Caesar, right? What a mighty name, huh? Chun Zhao had won the bet, so he obviously had to challenge Barisa. Otherwise, the fun of winning would be gone. Barisa's face darkened. The money is in Evely's account. With that, she turned to leave. Ludi looked at Princess. She's really too smart. I've never seen such a smart animal. Sir, have you considered selling her? I'm willing to buy her for $1 million. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. Someone had offered $2 million before, but Chun Zhao had only rolled his eyes. Chapter 1185. Little Jerlin puffed up her cheeks and stared at Ludi, indignant. Sir, I hope that you won't say such inappropriate things again, Chun Zhao said calmly. Ludi, what are you still doing there? Let's go. Barisa was extremely displeased. $30 million. She'd actually lost $30 million just because of a moment of anger. She'd never spent so much money in her life. Now, she'd actually given it to someone else to spend. Barisa was upset, but the money was in Evely's account. After the competition, Chun Zhao's family drove home. The last time Kaz came, he'd driven Chun Zhao's RV. This time, Chun Zhao's family left in the RV. Chun Zhao purposely slowed down so that Phalai and Jerlin could enjoy the scenery along the way. Jerlin had been in San Diego for a few days and hadn't gone anywhere. Chun Zhao was worried, so he didn't let her go out. After all, San Diego was unfamiliar with the place. Chun Zhao was more familiar with Los Angeles. He'd rather have Jerlin play in Los Angeles. When they got home, Jerlin jumped into the water eagerly. The other friends also jumped in impatiently. Apart from King Kong, all the other animals liked to play in the water. To Chinese, water was wealth. Water could make money. Only with water could there be wealth. Chun Zhao also liked water, so all the properties he showed off had water in them. Before going to San Diego, Chun Zhao went to his beach construction site to take a look. The early stage of the beach construction had been completed. Next up was the main construction. Chun Zhao hoped that he could move into his new home before his second child was born. It was a gift for Phalai and also for his second child. After returning home, Chun Zhao felt that his heavenly pattern had become even heavier. That's right, it was heavy, and his movements had become a little sluggish. The heavenly pattern was filled with magic, but it also put a lot of pressure on Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao entered the river diagram. Old turtle, you're here? Humph. Your whole family went out to play and left me here. Old turtle looked angry. Chun Zhao's family had been gone for around 10 days, but for the old turtle, it was almost 30 years.
Huh?
You seem to have reached the state of emptiness. Old turtle's tone suddenly changed. He studied Chun Zhao closely. But why do I feel very uncomfortable? Especially after returning home, I feel even more uncomfortable. It's very heavy, as if God is carrying dozens of tons of weight on his back. No one would feel comfortable carrying such a heavy load. Fortunately, it was Chun Zhao. If it were someone else, they would have collapsed from the pressure. This was not a psychological burden, but a real one.
Come here, let me see you.
Chun Zhao walked up and let Old Turtle check. Old Turtle pressed down on Chun Zhao's lower abdomen. Old Turtle was even more surprised. You only finished half? You've only achieved primal chaos emptiness, but not primal chaos emptiness. Is the primal chaos emptiness you speak of a comprehension of the heavens? That's right. The sky is chaos, and the earth is chaos. Old Turtle nodded. You've achieved primal chaos emptiness, and you've merged chaos with your body. Chaos has weight. The burden you feel is the pressure of chaos. Old Turtle paused and then said, only when you've achieved primal chaos emptiness can you make your body a real small world. Chaos is above chaos, and chaos is below chaos. The two complement each other, and you can achieve true primal chaos emptiness. Why is the pressure even greater when I'm home?
Nonsense.
The spiritual energy in Mirror Lake is several times greater than in other places. Your incomplete miniature world is absorbing even more spiritual energy, so of course, the pressure is greater.
Fortunately, it's you.
Your fleshly body is far beyond that of an ordinary person. If it was someone else cultivating the same way as you, their body would collapse in less than half a day. However, you have to be faster. The spiritual energy in your miniature world has not reached perfection yet. Once it reaches perfection, you'll have to endure 10 times the pressure now. Chun Zhao is already feeling uncomfortable all over. If the pressure increased by 10 times, he would probably be crushed to death by it too. It seemed that the trip to the core abyss could not be delayed any longer. You have comprehended the primal chaos emptiness, so you must have some understanding of the truth of this world. What you need to do now is to complete the primal chaos emptiness as soon as possible. Just like the world, there is a heaven and a earth. Chun Zhao nodded and left the river map with a heavy heart. What was primordial chaos? In the Taoist's explanation, primordial essence is Dan. The top was clear, and the bottom was turbid. As Old Turtle had said, the world was an internal alchemy, and the atmosphere was the meridians. Regardless of who this inner core and meridians belonged to, whether they were formed naturally or left behind by some extremely powerful deity, the inner core and meridians didn't matter. Now that he wanted to complete the chaotic emptiness, he had to form the inner core. In the past, Chun Zhao had thought that Taoist's inner alchemy was actually a stone. But now, Chun Zhao no longer had such thoughts. Fei Lai, I'm going out later. I might be gone for a long time. You and Jerlin stay at home. Okay, be careful on the road. Chun Zhao rushed to the headquarters anxiously. Klaus, you guys come over here. I have some questions for you. Chun Zhao called the entire lightning squad over. President, what's up? I want to ask you guys, how do you tell the direction in a maze-like place where you can't use navigation at all? I can't, Klaus said honestly. You can't? Animals can, but humans can't, Klaus said. A human sense of direction requires a reference. Without a reference, you can't tell the direction. It's not completely impossible, another member objected. Another member raised an objection. As long as you can mark every intersection and remember these markings, you can follow the markings on your way back. Then you can come back. But this method isn't safe, Klaus said. There's a certain risk, but it's the only way. Can you make a location-based transceiver? Chun Zhao asked. Yes, but there's a certain flaw in this method. The power is low, the signal is weak, and the penetration is poor. These flaws were exactly what Chun Zhao needed the most. Satellite navigation definitely wouldn't work deep underground. Satellite signals couldn't penetrate that deep. After thinking for a while, Chun Zhao suddenly thought of an idea. Chapter 1186. Help me prepare a large amount of rope. It has to be heat-resistant. Heat-resistant? Fire ropes can withstand at least 1,500 degrees, Klaus said. President, is 500 meters enough? No, Chen Zhao said. The more, the better. Get as much as you can. Chen Zhao was an impatient person. He didn't like waiting. Klaus immediately went to buy fire ropes too. Then, he brought them back by the truckload. He brought back a total of 200,000 meters of firefighting rope. It was a firefighter's special rope. It was made of carbon fiber and had strong heat resistance. Even if the temperature exceeded 1,500 degrees, the rope wouldn't burn. It would only carbonize and not be suitable for bearing heavy weights. President, where are you going? Klaus asked. Do you want us to go with you? Seeing that Chen Zhao had brought so many ropes and what he'd just said, they all felt that Chen Zhao was going to do something. No, I'm going deep underground. You guys can't go. President, we've also undergone high-temperature training. The place I'm going is more than 2,000 meters deep. The average temperature is more than 150 degrees. Are you sure? What did 150 degrees mean? The water was only 100 degrees. Bringing Klaus and the others was like throwing them into boiling water. No matter how well-trained they were, they couldn't endure such a hot environment. If they went to that depth, they'd die of dehydration in less than a minute. Hearing that, Klaus and the others felt helpless. If Chen Zhao was going to fight some monster, they thought they could protect themselves. Even if they couldn't unleash their combat power, they could at least give Chen Zhao some logistical help. But he had to go to such an extreme environment. Apart from an inhuman existence like Chen Zhao, no one else could endure such an extreme environment. Then, Chen Zhao brought a large amount of fresh water. Of course, it was all in his spatial ring. After changing his clothes, Chen Zhao set off. He had to go to the mountains and then the abyss. So, he couldn't wear normal clothes. After all, in the hot environment deep underground, normal clothes might get hot. Chen Zhao changed into a fiber camouflage suit. It could withstand high temperatures. Chen Zhao wanted to fly directly, but ever since returning to Los Angeles, the weight on his body had been increasing. Chen Zhao had only experienced flying for a short while in San Diego. After that, he couldn't fly anymore. Otherwise, it would be quite good to use for such a short distance journey. After walking for an hour, Chen Zhao rehydrated himself. Suddenly, he saw a fire ahead. Rustle, the rock under Chen Zhao's feet loosened and made a sound. A few voices came from the direction of the fire ahead. Who's there?
Come out.
Chen Zhao frowned. These people seemed to be reacting very strongly. Chen Zhao walked to the light. The people around the fire were all armed. Chen Zhao was confused. Who were these people? The weapons in their hands were not ordinary firearms or hunting rifles, but military equipment. Judging from their temperament and physique, they didn't look like ordinary people who were here to hunt. Chen Zhao raised both hands. I'm here to hunt. Hunting? Did you come here to hunt empty-handed? They looked at Chen Zhao suspiciously. I met a wild boar just now, Chen Zhao said. It stole my gun. These people began to discuss in low voices. Chen Zhao heard everything they said. Come here. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something? They put down their guns and suddenly became friendly. Thank you. Chen Zhao didn't stand on ceremony. He sat before the fire and started eating. These people realized that Chen Zhao's appetite was shocking. After sitting down, they didn't stay idle. In less than 20 minutes, he finished half of the food for the 5 of them. How long has it been since you last ate? I eat a lot. Do you mind? Chen Zhao's expression was playful. If they wanted to play dumb with him, then he would play dumb with them too. Not at all. As Chen Zhao ate, he studied the people. Oh, are you hunters too? Yeah, do you live nearby? No, I don't, but I've been here more than once. I know where there's a lot of prey. Do you want me to take you there? There's no need for that. We have our own destination. These people declined politely. Oh, aren't you going to camp here? We're here to hunt. There's more prey at night. It's better to hunt at night than during the day, the people said. Let's go hunting together. Chen Zhao realized that they'd already removed the safety. Clearly, if Chen Zhao didn't agree, they would use their own methods to make Chen Zhao agree. Sure, but can you give me a gun? Sorry, each of us has a gun. We can't give you one. Chun Zhao followed behind the five. Chun Zhao pretended not to hear their mutterings in front of him. Saint SK, are you sure the thing really exists here? Of course. You've all seen the pictures. As long as we catch it, we'll be rich. The other four's eyes lit up. They were clearly very excited. I heard that there used to be a military base here, but because of that monster, the entire base was abandoned. Even the army has to leave. Are you sure we can handle it with just a few guns? Don't worry. We just need to catch one. It's not like we have to kill them all. What about this guy? Bring him with us first. When we get close, we'll kill him and use his blood to lure it. How do you know that thing eats people? Of course. Do you think those sharp teeth are for nothing? We're here to catch that thing. Isn't it bad to kill people for that? What's wrong with that? He's just unlucky to run into us. Anyway, we're deep in the forest. If he dies, no one will know that we did it, Saint SK said. Saint Siko said, besides, when we catch that thing and have money, we can form a bigger team and catch more of this kind of thing. When that time comes, we can sell this thing all over the world. Only we know that this kind of monster exists here. If the news is leaked, others will come here to catch it. Who would buy us then? Chun Zhao had to admit that he agreed with these people's thoughts. But he was doubtful about one thing. Even if the five of them had automatic weapons, they could still catch the crypt demon. Could they really catch the crypt demon? Chapter 1187. They were close to the crypt demon's entrance. Just then, a figure appeared before them. It was a male crypt demon with 50% of its exoskeleton.
It was 4 meters long.
Its thick limbs meant that it didn't fear any creature in the forest. Even the automatic weapons in their hands couldn't threaten it. You go. Sanct SK suddenly pointed his gun at him. Do you want me to die? You ate our food, so of course you have to do something for us, Sanct SK said matter-of-factly. I'll just pay you back. No need. You just have to go and lure that big guy over. Stop talking and go. Chun Zhao looked at the 5 people before him. You're making a very stupid decision. If you don't go, I'll kill you. Suddenly, the crypt demon disappeared. Sanct SK, where did that thing go? Behind you, Sanct SK suddenly shouted, but it was too late. The crypt demon had already attacked. It bit one of them and dragged him into the darkness. Sanct SK and the others tried to chase, but the crypt demon was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the darkness. The person who was dragged away didn't even have time to scream. Even a well-trained mercenary team couldn't fight a male crypt demon, let alone these amateur players. They weren't even real hunters before this. They should be jobless vagrants or gangsters. Soon, the second person was dragged away by the crypt demons. But there was nothing they could do. Run, run. We can't go on like this. I don't want to die here. The 3 of them gave up very decisively and immediately wanted to retreat. But when they ran a few steps, they heard screeches. 2 larger crypt demons appeared in front of them. These 2 crypt demons were more than 5 meters long. Their limbs were also stronger. The 3 wanted to run in another direction, but another crypt demon appeared from another direction. And 3 more crypt demons appeared. The 3 were in complete despair. They couldn't even hold their guns steadily. They looked at the monsters in fear. Bang, bang, bang. The 3 of them fired without a care in the world. But when the bullets hit the crypt demons, sparks flew everywhere. The bullets bounced off randomly, but the crypt demon remained unharmed. It was not until they ran out of bullets that the gunshot stopped. A crypt demon pounced forward and pinned one of them to the ground. Then, a bloody scene appeared in front of the remaining 2 people. They watched as their companion was bitten into a bloody mess by the huge crypt demon. At this moment, they naturally regretted their ignorance and recklessness. But it was too late. Chun Zhao had been standing behind the 2. What do you think? Do you still need me to be the bait? You go. Saint SYLT pointed his gun at him again. Even though the gun in his hand was out of bullets, he still refused to give up. It was as if the gun could bring him a sense of security. Suddenly, He realized that there was a black shadow behind Chen Zhao. Saint Ski tilted his head and looked behind Chen Zhao. He realized that there was also a crypt demon standing behind Chen Zhao. Shensk was so frightened that he fell to the ground. His pants were already wet. You're back. My back? You mean him? I think he's called Zhao. I gave him that name. What do you think? The crypt demon stood beside Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao patted its shoulder. The crypt demon was about 1.5 meters tall when standing and almost 5 meters long. It was a male crypt demon with 95% exoskeleton. At the same time, it was the crypt demon queen's guard. Because Chen Zhao had come and gone a few times, he even gave it a name. Of course, it wasn't just him. The crypt demon queen's guards also had names. They were Zhao Qian, Sun Li, Zhou Wu, and Wang Zheng. You, Saint Sylt, and the other person stared at Chen Zhao in fear. Chen Zhao had a faint smile. He was happy to see the crypt demons eat them. Compared to them, he liked them more. Other than their appetites and menu, Chen Zhao also liked the crypt demons. After the initial conflict, the crypt demons weren't that cruel. Perhaps because they weren't a big group, they didn't have deep-rooted bad habits like humans. Just then, the old crypt demon appeared. Ignoring the two, Chen Zhao turned to face the old crypt demon. Hey, old man, hello. Human, hello. Who are these two humans? Unimportant people. You can do whatever you want. The old crypt demon looked at the two. Do whatever I want? Yes. Chen Zhao wasn't a clean freak. He still insisted that they couldn't kill people. The old crypt demon didn't give the order to kill the two. Nissan species need to be raised. Do they need to be raised specially? It's mainly because the two Nissan species you brought are cubs. They don't have the ability to protect themselves, so they need special care. But we aren't suited to take care of Nissan cubs, the old crypt demon said. Okay, Chen Zhao said. Oh, I need to go deep into the cave. We'll bring you in, but my people and I can't send you to the deepest part. After a certain depth, it'll be very dangerous for us too. Of course. You just need to bring me to the entrance. Then I'll go deeper myself. The two behind him stood there, trembling. After a while, Chen Zhao walked up to them with a smile. You're very lucky. You there letting us go? No, they don't want to eat you immediately. They want to eat cooked food, so you won't die for now. The two were so scared that they almost fainted. Oh, there's another option. At least you won't die in the short term. Are you willing to accept it? What option? Work for them. If you perform well, maybe I'll help you. Okay, we're willing to work for them. The crypt demon nudged the two and had them follow. The two followed Chen Zhao into the depths of the crypt demon ruins. They discovered that there were even more crypt demons here. However, the absolute darkness that followed completely submerged them in fear. Chen Zhao didn't care about their fates. The old crypt demon and the other crypt demons brought Chen Zhao in another direction. It was a crack in the depths of the cave. It led to an even deeper place. A strong crypt demon jumped into the crack first. Chen Zhao also jumped in. After climbing and falling a few times, Chen Zhao and the crypt demon arrived at the bottom of the crack. The temperature here was already higher than above. It was probably over 60 degrees. Chapter 1188. There was no light here, but darkness didn't affect Chen Zhao. The surrounding rock walls were brownish red with some black substance. This was already 2,000 meters underground. But this wasn't enough. 2,000 meters was only the Earth's crust. The thickness of the crust was about 33 kilometers. Until now, human technology still couldn't penetrate deep into the crust. Chen Zhao realized that the temperature here was higher than expected. Chen Zhao started to walk through the cracks. The width of the cracks wasn't fixed. Some places were very narrow. Chen Zhao had to use violent methods to widen the cracks. Chen Zhao's incomplete little world provided him with sufficient magic power. The environment here and the test for living beings were more severe than he'd imagined. If Chen Zhao had come here before he understood chaotic emptiness, he would either have to turn back or die here in half an hour. Chen Zhao felt like he was going through a huge battle with every minute he walked. His mana was used up like a tide. However, the golden key in Chen Zhao's body was also changing. Chen Zhao didn't feel so uncomfortable anymore. At least the high temperature here wasn't the biggest problem. The small world was maintaining Chen Zhao's mana consumption. It actually lightened his burden. Right now, Chen Zhao was in his best condition. The incomplete small world gave Chen Zhao a huge source of mana, but it also put a burden on him. And now, Chen Zhao's crazy mana consumption was also helping him relieve stress. It was as if he had been carrying 50 tons of weight, and now the weight had been reduced to 40 tons. Of course, carrying a heavy load had its disadvantages, but there were also advantages. Chen Zhao's mass had increased. When Chen Zhao fought large or super large monsters, there was always a disadvantage. Even though Chen Zhao was stronger than his opponent, his weight would still cause him to be sent flying when he had no foothold to hold onto. It was like if Chen Zhao fell from the sky, the impact would be very limited. Because Chen Zhao's weight was like a raindrop falling from the clouds. If raindrops could accelerate infinitely, then a raindrop could kill a person. In reality, raindrops couldn't because they were too small. However, if it was a massive object such as a hailstone, then it could really kill people. This was the impact brought about by mass. It was the same for Chen Zhao now. He could charge around like a monster. There was no need for any fancy moves or attacks, just a direct impact to destroy the enemy. Suddenly, Chen Zhao paused. The edge of the small world seemed to feel a force rushing over from the front. Chen Zhao immediately used the Qingyi armor to protect himself. The next moment, a violent wave of heat rushed toward Chen Zhao. It was water vapor with a temperature of hundreds of degrees Celsius. And the water vapor brought by the geothermal heat also brought about an impact in such a narrow space. Even Chen Zhao couldn't resist it. He was smashed into the wall by the steam. Whoosh! Chen Zhao shook his head. The impact was too great. This was the power of nature, completely beyond human understanding. However, this also alerted Chen Zhao. Perhaps the current him was already standing at the top of the food chain in the human world. But compared to nature, he was nothing. He was now facing the most terrifying side of nature. Therefore, he would be even more humble. Chen Zhao continued forward. There was no fork in the road that he had imagined. This surprised Chen Zhao a bit. But it was understandable. Some land plates weren't stable, so it was normal for there to be small changes in the geological structure. Of course, the land plates here weren't continental plates. Continental plates were usually between 50 to 250 kilometers thick. Right now, Chen Zhao was only on the surface of the American continent. But the surface plates would still move. Chen Zhao walked for another half an hour, and suddenly, light appeared before him. It wasn't strong, but Chen Zhao still saw azure light. Chen Zhao walked forward quickly. He couldn't believe his eyes. This was a super huge cave in a lake. The top of the cave was covered in a layer of faint blue fluorescence. The fluorescence reflected on the surface of the lake, making it look like a sapphire. According to Chen Zhao's estimation, the visible area of this lake was at least dozens of times larger than Mirror Lake. The surrounding temperature wasn't very high either. The water must have lowered the temperature. Chen Zhao thought again and felt that it wasn't right. Although this underground lake was huge, under this kind of environment, after thousands of years of baking, the temperature of the water should have become very high. Chen Zhao had already come to the side of the lake. He tested the water temperature. It was actually room temperature. If this was a hot spring, Chen Zhao could accept it, but the water temperature was only a dozen degrees. It was too low. Unless there was another water source that kept pouring water here, and then the water flowed to other places. That way, the water could be kept at room temperature. Suddenly, a tentacle shot out of the lake and wrapped around Chen Zhao's ankle. Chen Zhao pulled with his foot and pulled the tentacle out of the water. It was a strange-looking giant octopus. Its body glowed with fluorescence. The next moment, the fluorescence on the giant octopus became dazzling. Then Chen Zhao felt a strong electric current surge into his body. However, the current was very average, and it didn't threaten him at all. The strong current from the octopus actually replenished his magic power. Chun Zhao tore off the octopus's tentacle. Large amounts of milky, white liquid splashed out from the glowing octopus's broken limb.
Ha!
This is diluted earth essence. This giant octopus actually has earth essence? Chun Zhao immediately grew excited. He started absorbing the earth essence from the octopus. Soon, the earth essence in the glowing octopus was drained dry. The octopus also lost its life. Chun Zhao tossed the octopus back into the lake. However, at that moment, a huge mouth appeared in the water and bit off half of the fluorescent octopus's body. Chun Zhao looked at the surface of the lake, and I was also staring at him under the water. It was a water gull, a very large one. Water gull were special creatures because they were actually the larvae of dragonflies. But actually, when they grew into dragonflies, they were already in their old age. Humans were more familiar with beautiful dragonflies. They hated ugly water gull. This water gull seemed to see Chun Zhao as prey. Chapter 1189. What kind of situation was the most satisfying? For example, revenge. It was a choice made by the emotions produced by dopamine. The other type was killing without any psychological burden. For example, Chun Zhao right now. Chun Zhao was crazily killing the monsters in the underground lake. It was a killing that liberated one's nature and allowed oneself to fly. Chun Zhao didn't feel any psychological burden when killing. He didn't feel any compassion when killing other small animals either. Chun Zhao's killing was completely random. The ecosystem here was completely different from that on the surface, as well as biological characteristics that were completely different from those on the surface. One of the characteristics was big. Chun Zhao killed dozens of giant creatures, but they were all filled with white liquid, which was the diluted essence of the earth. There wasn't a single monster like the big spider, or a single golden substance. The dozens of giant creatures Chun Zhao killed weren't even as pure as the earth essence provided by the big spider. Chun Zhao stopped killing. He flipped around in the lake to check. There were no stronger creatures in the lake. Unless Chun Zhao killed all the creatures in the underground lake, he wouldn't be able to gather a portion of the golden substance. Other than the monsters, the underground lake was actually not bad. If a normal tourist could come here, it would definitely be an extraordinary experience. Of course, that wouldn't happen. Other than Chun Zhao, probably only Gaia had the ability to come here. The others wouldn't be able to come here at all. Chun Zhao also found an underground river on the other side of the lake. So, Chun Zhao planned to go in and check. He wanted to see if he could go deeper underground. Not long after entering the river, Chun Zhao arrived at an underground waterfall. The 30-meter drop was nothing to Chun Zhao. But below the waterfall was the magma lake. When the water fell above the magma lake, it evaporated before it even reached the bottom. Then it formed water vapor. The water vapor Chun Zhao had encountered before should have been formed here. Chun Zhao stood above the waterfall and looked down at the magma lake. The temperature below was very high. The water from the waterfall couldn't evaporate before it hit the ground. One could imagine how high the temperature here was. Even Chun Zhao would probably be cooked in a minute if he fell into the magma lake. The temperature here was completely different from Skyfire territory. Although the temperature of the heavenly fire domain was high, the heavenly fire could be absorbed. But the lava here would burn him to death. Chun Zhao's dark serum could assimilate with magma. But that was when there was more darkness, original fluid, and less lava. But how much energy was contained in the huge magma lake below? If the dark origin fluid seeped into the magma, it wouldn't be the dark origin fluid assimilating the magma, but the magma assimilating the dark origin fluid. Just then, Chun Zhao saw a figure swimming in the lava. The figure was more than 10 meters long. In terms of body length or shape, it wasn't very big. Even from a few hundred meters away, Chun Zhao could still feel the creature's aura. This creature looked like the legendary plesiosaur. However, plesiosaurs lived in water, not magma. Chun Zhao silently assessed the strength of the plesiosaur-like creature. This snake-necked dragon's aura was even more powerful than the great arachne. That meant that it had high-purity earth essence in its body. Suddenly, The plesiosaur lifted its long neck from the magma and spat out a mouthful of lava. Chun Zhao dodged the lava. So the creature had discovered him. Plus, it was really irritable. It actually attacked Chun Zhao first.
But thinking about it, it made sense.
All the creatures he encountered underground would attack him first. The underground world was a dog-eat-dog world. But it wasn't easy for Chun Zhao to kill the creature. It swam in the magma, but Chun Zhao couldn't resist it. What should he do? Chun Zhao thought about it and suddenly thought of an idea. He could widen the underground river and direct more lake water here to extinguish the magma lake. Of course, it was impossible to extinguish it forever. After all, there had to be a connection to such a large magma lake. But it was still possible for a short time. After all, the underground lake was very large, and the only outlet was this underground river. As long as a large amount of water from the underground lake was poured here, the temperature here could be lowered in a very short period of time. Chun Zhao turned back along the underground river. At the entrance, he used brute force to completely destroy the entrance. Chun Zhao used the dark magma like a tunnel puncher. It spun wildly and cut open the cave in the underground river. Instantly, even more lake water surged into the underground river. But the underground lake was very large. Even after expanding the underground river, the water level didn't drop significantly. Chun Zhao returned to the waterfall and watched the large amount of water rush into the magma lake. It formed a large amount of steam and mist, covering the entire sky above the magma lake. Sizzling sounds could be heard everywhere. Soon, the lake water started occupying the magma lake. Chun Zhao waited for half an hour. Water was already accumulating below. But the water below was all boiling. It was just boiling water, so Chun Zhao jumped in. The current temperature was within Chun Zhao's acceptable range. Just then, a plesiosaur suddenly emerged from the mist and pounced at Chun Zhao. It's still alive? Chun Zhao was surprised. He'd thought that the plesiosaur was used to the temperature of the magma and wouldn't be able to survive in water. However, the result was unexpected. The plesiosaur monster was still alive and kicking. Chun Zhao's all-out attack crushed the plesiosaur's head. As expected, he found a golden substance in the plesiosaur's corpse. Chun Zhao couldn't help but absorb it. After it was absorbed, it fused into Chun Zhao's lower dantian. The golden substance was the high-purity essence of the earth. Not only was the essence of the earth the main ingredient for cultivating primordial emptiness, but it could also strengthen one's body. Actually, Old Turtle had told him so much about primordial emptiness. Basically, it was core formation. Just as Chun Zhao was about to condense the earth essence, an even bigger plesiosaur appeared and bit at him. Chun Zhao was shocked. There's another one? No, there's another one, there's another one. Chun Zhao realized that the entire magma lake was the plesiosaur's nest. There were countless plesiosaurs here. After Chun Zhao purposely destroyed the environment, all the plesiosaurs came out. They seemed to be very used to the steamy environment. Chun Zhao couldn't help but suspect that this wasn't the first time lake water poured into the magma lake. It might be a cycle, so the plesiosaurs could completely adapt to this environment. Chapter 1190. Chun Zhao looked at the plesiosaurs. There was no pity or sympathy here. If Chun Zhao didn't kill them, they would kill Chun Zhao. This was the most primitive world, with the most primitive rules. Every time Chun Zhao killed a plesiosaur and absorbed the earth essence from its body, his body would become stronger. When the earth essence in his body reached a certain level, it would condense into an elixir. Chun Zhao didn't need to condense it. The earth essence would condense itself. The elixir was already formed, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't solid enough. The elixir was still in a liquid state. It needed a large amount of earth essence to condense. After killing so many plesiosaurs, Chun Zhao attracted more underground creatures. There were strong and weak ones. The weaker subterranean creatures were the bigger rats. They didn't dare to attack Chun Zhao, but they fought for food with him. They tore at the plesiosaur corpses in groups. Chun Zhao didn't have time to deal with these rats. Just then, the rats suddenly stopped eating. Their gazes were all focused on the steam. Chun Zhao's pupils constricted. Something was coming. Suddenly, Chun Zhao felt danger. Chun Zhao immediately activated Qingyi Cloud and blocked the dark lava in front of him. But the dark lava was pierced first. A wave of power attacked him with an unstoppable momentum. Chun Zhao was sent flying hundreds of meters away.
Pain.
That was Chun Zhao's feeling. Qingyi Cloud was broken instantly. If he wasn't strong enough, this attack would be enough to kill him. Chun Zhao looked into the mist. He could vaguely see a red ball. Its entire body was burning. Chun Zhao released all the electricity stored in the eye of the lightning. Terrifying electricity spread in the mist. The entire space was filled with electricity, making crackling sounds. The creature's strange cry came from the mist too. It seemed to work. That thing couldn't withstand electricity. Chun Zhao charged through the mist toward the ball of fire. When Chun Zhao saw it clearly, he was still shocked. It was a huge bird that was burning with flames. This was not a large bird whose body had been set on fire, but rather, it was a flame. A thought popped up in Chun Zhao's mind. Phoenix. Flames formed every inch of its body. This was a true immortal bird. The phoenix flapped its flaming wings, and the surrounding steam was blown away. By then, Chun Zhao was already in front of him. Chun Zhao couldn't care less about how hot the phoenix was. In any case, it was just a punch that landed on the undying bird. The immortal bird was sent flying. Chun Zhao approached it again. Another punch landed on the undying bird. The undying bird pecked at Chun Zhao with its beak. The immortal bird's blood landed on Chun Zhao. He felt a bone-piercing pain. If this were to continue, even if he managed to kill the undying bird, he would still be burned to death. Chun Zhao didn't want to continue. He took out the zither and the 12 stone swords. 12 stone swords slashed at the phoenix. The phoenix cried out loudly. The stone sword had caused great damage to it. The undying bird seemed to have realized that it was about to die. Its body suddenly began to shrink, and as its body shrank, its temperature increased. Legend has it that the immortal bird had the ability to rise from the ashes, which was the legendary nirvana. Chun Zhao wouldn't let it go through nirvana, but its body had already shrunk by half. The temperature had increased several times. Even though he was more than 10 meters away, Chun Zhao could not withstand the heat. The stone swords even melted. Even the stone swords couldn't withstand the scorching heat. The undying bird shrank even more. It couldn't continue like this. Chun Zhao released all the dark lava and wrapped it around the undying bird. At this moment, the dark magma began to boil like boiling water. Chun Zhao didn't know that dark lava had a boiling point. But he couldn't back down now. Under Chun Zhao's control, the dark lava pierced inwards and shot through the undying bird's body. The undying bird's nirvana finally stopped. Its body stopped too. Monsters no longer attacked Chun Zhao. In fact, as soon as the undying bird appeared, all the other monsters had fled. Chun Zhao walked toward the undying bird's body. The undying bird wasn't as hot as before. Its body was as calm as a normal creature. Chun Zhao realized that the undying bird's blood was merging with the dark lava. Chun Zhao was more concerned about whether there was gold in the undying bird's body. But when Chun Zhao pried open the undying bird's body, he found a golden bead. Was this the pure essence of the earth? No, this was already an internal alchemy, right? Had he killed an undying bird that had reached the emptiness realm? That wasn't right either. It should be like him, only half complete. Chun Zhao had comprehended the emptiness realm, while it had comprehended the emptiness realm. Chun Zhao started absorbing the earth essence. At that moment, Chun Zhao felt that his blood was boiling. Chun Zhao forcefully suppressed the burning sensation. Meanwhile, the internal alchemy in his lower dantian started solidifying and turning gold. Furthermore, there was a pattern of an immortal bird on the inner core. Chun Zhao felt the changes in his body. At that moment, all the weight disappeared. The emptiness realm was finally complete. The heavenly patterns in the small world seemed to have been ignited. All the patterns were covered in red flames. The small world was around 50 meters in diameter and shaped like a hemisphere. At the moment, it looked like a burning tree. Withdraw. Chen Zhao's heart jumped. The flames immediately disappeared and returned to his body. Chen Zhao's consciousness moved again. A ball of fire exploded in a certain spot in the small world. It felt so good to control the world. However, that was only within the small world. Chen Zhao couldn't do anything beyond that. His body lightened, and he floated up. Chen Zhao could feel that there were more terrifying existences in the direction where the undying bird had appeared. But he didn't plan on going deeper. It was already so dangerous. If he went deeper, he would only die a worse death. So, he decided to leave. Chen Zhao easily returned to the waterfall and followed the underground river back to the underground lake. Just then, he had another idea. Since there were other sources of water in the underground lake, they were probably above ground. Could he go back to the surface from the water entrance? Soon, Chen Zhao found the water inlet. He followed it and swam upstream. The current was rapid, but it wasn't a threat to Chen Zhao. Finally, Chen Zhao felt the exit of the undercurrent. Chen Zhao pushed up and finally floated to the surface. But why did the surroundings feel so familiar? Chen Zhao looked left and right. Chapter 1191. Chen Zhao didn't even dream about it. After going around, he was back home. There was a tunnel that led deep underground in front of his house. Chen Zhao rose into the air, but he realized that he was still limited by height. When he was above 100 meters, the weight came again. It was like some force was trying to pull him back to the ground. Even though he understood the emptiness of the world, he still couldn't fly freely in the sky. It seemed that he still had a long way to go before he could truly fly in the sky and burrow underground. Chen Zhao was somewhat disappointed. Fei Lai went to the balcony of her bedroom and saw a figure flying in the darkness. She was too familiar with that figure. Chen Zhao. Was that her man? Fei Lai was filled with shock. Chen Zhao finally noticed Fei Lai's gaze. He flew from the sky above the lake to the balcony. He hovered outside the balcony, holding a golden feather in his hand. Fei Lai, this is for you. Chen, this is? Phoenix's feather. Fei Lai's eyes were moist. She took the golden feather lovingly. Chen, you can fly? I just learned. Chen Zhao pulled Fei Lai's hand and carried her like a princess. Then he flew slowly above the lake. Chen, you're Superman, right? I'm willing to be your Superman. Just then, the morning glow rose from the distant sea. Fei Lai had never seen such a beautiful morning glow before. It was an enchanting scene, a beautiful scene that made people linger on and forget to leave. Flying was a very special experience. Chen Zhao had done something that humans could only dream of. He could fly into the sky without using any tools, although he couldn't completely break free from gravity. However, Chen Zhao believed that one day he would definitely be able to do that. He could also do it. He could break through the speed that he couldn't on the ground by flying. He could even reach the sound barrier. But flying in the sky was even more tiring. It was very tiring. In the past, without the small world, Chen Zhao might not even be able to fly for 10 minutes with his magic power. But now, even with the small world, he still couldn't fly for long. 1 hour was the most he could do. To put it simply, flying consumed much more magic power than Chen Zhao's magic recovery. With the small world, Chen Zhao's magic source had expanded more than 10 times. But this didn't mean that he had endless magic power. Chen Zhao put Fei Lai on the stone ball in the middle of the lake. Chen Zhao's magic power started seeping into the stone ball. The stone ball was Old Turtle's inner elixir. In principle, Chen Zhao could absorb Old Turtle's internal elixir too. But the level difference between Chen Zhao and Old Turtle was too big. In fact, Mirror Lake itself was a small world. Old Turtle's inner elixir had created a small world of its own. Just thinking about the area of this small world of more than 10 square kilometers, one could imagine how huge this small world was. Chen Zhao and Old Turtle's relationship aside. In terms of ability alone, he couldn't take Old Turtle's internal alchemy and turn it into his own small world. The difference between Chen Zhao's little world and Old Turtle's was like comparing a watermelon to a sesame seed. Plus, this was only 1/10,000th of Old Turtle's power. After breakfast, Chen Zhao entered the river map. Hey, you're really fast. It should have only been less than a day outside, right? You've actually completed chaotic emptiness. Old Turtle looked at him in surprise. Old Turtle, this roast chicken is for you. Chen Zhao tossed a mortal bird's body before Old Turtle. Is this a phoenix in China? What kind of phoenix is this? If you meet a phoenix, and the phoenix is hostile to you, it can probably make you evaporate from the world with just a glance. This thing is at most a strange beast. Phoenix is a divine beast, a spirit of heaven and earth. There are 5 main types. Red is the phoenix, cyan is the yuan, purple is the taowu, yellow is the taowu, and white is the swan. Old Turtle said, phoenixes only live on the parasol tree and never land in the sky. Once they land, the seas will boil and the 9 hells will roll. Think about the difference between the phoenix you mentioned and this thing. Old Turtle lifted a mortal bird's body. But this thing has some phoenix blood. I don't need it. Mix it with rootless water and make soup for your wife. It'll nourish your wife and protect the fetus. The child will be very healthy in the future. Old Turtle, my bronze and stone swords were both destroyed when I fought this strange bird. Help me make a few more stone swords. I don't know how to refine weapons. What I can refine is the most ordinary molding, just like those stone swords from before. They are made by melting the stone at high temperatures. With your current strength, if you meet an opponent weaker than you, you won't be able to use it at all. However, if you meet an opponent of the same strength as you, the stone swords are basically useless. Then what should I do? If I don't have a suitable weapon, I'll always feel empty. Think of a way yourself. I'm not Doraemon. Chen Zhao was chased out of the river map by Old Turtle. After some thought, Chen Zhao decided to call West. Chen Zhao called West. West, you said that the association wanted to recruit an alchemist. Did you get any results? West was surprised that Chen Zhao would bring this up. President, not yet. Then do you have any intentions? For example, someone you like? A few. I sent invitations on behalf of the association, but I haven't heard back. Who are they? Chen Zhao asked. Holland's alchemist Punk, Japan's famous swordsmith Higashino Tenki, and South Africa's famous 5 venoms, Sex Elder Wago. All 3 of them have very good alchemy skills. At the same time, in terms of personal integrity, they meet the requirements of our association, West said. Are there any other Japanese? Of course. West knew that the Chinese and the Japanese had a feud, so when he mentioned the Japanese swordsmith, Higashino Tianchi, he only mentioned him briefly. Chen Zhao also had this concern. Recruiting a Japanese might not be a pleasant experience. Does this Japanese specialize in forging swords? He's proficient in forging all kinds of weapons, and he's also good at making magical tools. Most of the weapons our members use now are made by Padaloo and Jolig, and they're only good at mechanical weapons. They're very unfamiliar with magical weapons. For example, Gaia's weapons are custom-made. Not only are they expensive, but Gaia also took a long time to get used to their flaming greatsword. If this Japanese bladesmith is willing to join our association, we can have him custom-make a set of weapons and equipment for everyone. Chapter 1192. The Dutch Alchemist, Punk. He's best at making all kinds of magic potions. The South African voodoo master, Vago, is actually a witch doctor. He's the leader of his tribe. He treats people in his tribe and makes voodoo antidotes. He's also the one who rejected our invitation the most. From West's explanation, Chen Zhao roughly understood one thing. All 3 of them had their own specialties. But they weren't comprehensive enough. All 3 were things that the association needed. If there was someone who could be good at everything the 3 were good at, he'd be the perfect alchemist. But clearly, with the association's current fame and authority, it wasn't that attractive. What the association could do now was attract other spiritualists with benefits and benefits. Did they make any requests? Chen Zhao asked. Punk asked for unlimited research funds, and we can't force him to work. Fuck, we're not looking for a grandfather to worship. We can't just cut off all ties with him. Chen Zhao disliked arrogant people the most. Perhaps this punk was very capable, but Chen Zhao wouldn't ask for help. West had come to beg Chen Zhao. What was the supernatural organization like then? They couldn't even deal with the evil spirit group in Maple Leaf Community. The association was also in chaos internally, and there was also a big worm that Chen Zhao had already cut into pieces.
But what was it like now?
The people in the supernatural organization had built up their confidence and pride. Maybe they weren't perfect yet, but they could say no to anyone. The supernatural organization was willing to recruit more capable spiritualists, but they definitely wouldn't be begging humbly. The most direct manifestation was the difference in power. If another haunted community like Maple Leaf Community appeared, 5 people in the association could deal with it alone. Or 3 or 4 people working together could deal with it. There wouldn't be a situation where a haunted community couldn't be dealt with in a few years. Moreover, their power was still growing. In the past, Jalanash was the strongest. Her pride couldn't match her power at all. But now, Jalanash wasn't as proud as before. She knew that many people in the world were better and stronger than her. Even in the association, many people could defeat her. West could also bravely say no to the Anti-Terrorism Association and negotiate with them with a tough attitude. Where are the other 2? Chen Zhao asked. That Japanese man, Dongye Tianqi. He asked us to help him subdue a ghost king. What ghost king? Shall we go to Japan? No, that ghost king was sealed in his family's demon knife, and that demon knife was lost when he came to America. Apart from this, are there any other requirements? No, West said. Are there any clues about the whereabouts of the demon blade? In the past month, 4 people in the Los Angeles area have been injured by sharp weapons. One of them died, and according to the investigation, all the blood in the dead person's body was sucked dry. We suspect it has something to do with the sword. Regarding this matter, the association will continue to investigate. After all, even if this matter was not entrusted to us, it is still within the scope of our duties. Also, what is Dongye Tianqi's personality like? He's very similar to the Japanese I know, humble and proud. What about the last witch doctor, Vago, from Africa? Did he propose any conditions? Yes, but it's basically impossible for us to do it. What condition? Protect his tribe and help them escape poverty and war. In that case, only the Japanese still has a chance, right? Actually, there's a list, but they're either too weak or have no chance at all. They've already pledged their loyalty to other forces. Make an appointment with the Japanese, Chen Zhao said. Okay. Chen Zhao wanted to see if the Japanese could get along with him. If they could, then he would recruit him. If not, then he would give up on the idea. Due to well-known reasons, the relationship between China and Japan had always been very complicated. Chen Zhao wanted a subordinate, not someone who would cause trouble for him. Therefore, Chen Zhao had to make sure that the Japanese did not have any conflicts of principle with him. If Dongye Tianqi was a pervert, Chen Zhao would probably kill him on the spot. Chen Zhao went to the headquarters of the association in the afternoon. When he arrived, he saw a few unfamiliar cars parked in the parking lot. When he entered the hall, he saw a few uninvited guests. Chen Zhao's expression changed instantly. It was not just anyone but people from the Magic Palace. At the front were Rococo and Bisa. The other 3 were Arthur and the other 2 Guardian Knights. To Chen Zhao's surprise, the last one was Bolton, a police officer from San Diego. It's you guys? Chen Zhao's expression darkened.
He was ready to attack.
Hi, Mr. Chen, we meet again. Rococo smiled at Chen Zhao. Are you here to die? Chen Zhao asked with a dark expression. Mr. Chen, don't attack first. We're here to resolve the misunderstanding, Bisa said. I don't think there's any misunderstanding.
You attacked me.
President, I think there's indeed a misunderstanding between you two. West volunteered to be the peacemaker. They attacked me first. Mr. Chen, we're here to apologize to you, Bisa said. Bisa said, we know. We originally thought that Mr. Chen deliberately created the Thousand Faces demon spirit, so he created that massacre. Chun Zhao's expression was still dark. He stared coldly at the people before him. The truth proves that we were wrong. Misha had already learned from Wes the reason why Chun Zhao had massacred them back then. She could not accept Chun Zhao's bloody methods, but at least Chun Zhao was not the crazy and evil wizard she'd thought him to be. To be honest, Chun Zhao was not as angry as that day. His anger was a momentary impulse. Chun Zhao did not have any deep grudges against them. Chun Zhao did not want to kill them anymore. However, it was still impossible for him to resolve the conflict with them. Mr. Chun, no matter whether you forgive us or not, please accept our apologies. Also, we're here to cooperate with the supernatural organization. Cooperate with what? I don't think we have to. It's about Rupert, the demon spirit in her. Is there a problem? Chapter 1193. Chun Zhao didn't like Rupert, but that didn't mean he would give her to someone else. In particular, he disliked her even more. He'd even had some conflicts with them before.
Why?
Chun Zhao crossed his legs and sat on the main seat. Crossing his arms, he looked at the people in the magic palace. Mr. Chun, maybe you don't understand the severity of the situation, Bamiza said. There's a demon soul in Rupert's body. It's the demon Kansmosa. And then, haven't you heard of this name? The people in the magic palace were disappointed by Chun Zhao's calm reaction. They'd thought that Chun Zhao would be shocked and in disbelief. Just then, West whispered into Chun Zhao's ear, "This name comes from a famous demon from the Middle Ages." A demon from the Middle Ages? Including the 20 years she'd been asleep, Rupert was only 27 or 28 years old. She'd only been sealed for 20 years. How did a demon from the Middle Ages appear? Chun Zhao thought that it was a demon that had only appeared recently. It said that Kansmosa was a subordinate of the King of Magic, Bamiza said. Not only did he have unparalleled magical power, but he also had an evil army. He once turned into a duke in the Roman Empire and used his power to recruit troops. Then he used his evil magic to transform the army into a demon army and challenged the Vatican. In the end, the Vatican destroyed the demon and sealed his body and soul separately. His subordinates have been hiding in the darkness, waiting for Kansmosa to wake up from the seal and lead the demon army again.
Get to the point.
Not long ago, we discovered that Sibylla is a believer of the demon doctrine. She's been plotting to resurrect Kansmosa. Chun Zhao looked at Rococo. I remember she's your daughter, right? That day in the underground parking lot, Chun Zhao had heard their conversation while hiding in the darkness. He also knew that Sibylla was Rococo's daughter. That's right. Don't you know what your daughter believes in? I can't help but suspect that you're the one who guided her to believe in the demon doctrine. She is indeed my daughter, but she has never lived with me before, and the person who discovered her faith was also me. Luo Coco said indifferently. Mr. Chun, 20 years ago, Sibylla found the place where Kong Mosa's soul was sealed. Then, she deceived the other witches and released Kong Mosa's soul. However, she overestimated the strength of Kong Mosa's soul. After being sealed for 1,000 years, Kong Mosa was extremely weak, and he was only in his soul form. In the end, he was defeated by the other witches. Sibylla then proposed to seal Kong Mosa's soul. Using the magic she learned from the East, she divided Kong Mosa's soul into 3 parts and sealed them in Rupert and her 2 students. Then what do you want Rupert to do? Destroy 1/3 of Kong Mosa's soul. As long as 1/3 of Kong Mosa's soul is destroyed, even if Kong Mosa is resurrected in the future, he will still be an incomplete soul. At that time, the threat will be far less than a fully resurrected Kong Mosa, and we will have more confidence in destroying him. Speak the truth, Chun Zhao said, looking at the people of the magic palace. Mr. Chun, in order to achieve righteousness, sacrifice is needed. Rupert's mother was one of the witches who fought with Kong Mosa's soul. She was also tricked by Sibylla, so she accepted Sibylla's suggestion and sealed 1/3 of the demon's soul in her daughter's body. She also needs to take responsibility for her mistakes, Bisa said. Oh, are you done? Mr. Chun, what's your answer? I won't keep you for dinner, Chun Zhao said.
You can leave now.
Mr. Chen, do you know what you're saying? I do. A group of enemies came to my house and asked for people. Can I understand that? Chun Zhao's eyes were like torches. He looked coldly at the people of the Magic Palace and turned to West. West, my temper seems to be much better. I'm surprised I didn't attack them on the spot. Yes, President, your temper is indeed much better. To be honest, West would not be surprised if Chun Zhao attacked. But if some random person comes here again, don't be polite, Chun Zhao said. But don't be so polite. Mr. Chen, you're making a very stupid decision. This is my territory. Old woman, you'd better take care of yourself. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to control my temper. Since they weren't friends, Chen Zhao did not need to pretend to be polite. Let's go. Baisa left with a pale face. She and Rococo had already lowered their statuses and came to negotiate with him with good intentions. But Chun Zhao had rejected them. It was easy to imagine how Baisa felt. Guild leader, will our Sin Magic Temple really be fine? West asked worriedly. What? You think we're weaker than them? The Magic Palace is the headquarters of thousands of witches in Europe. Those two are great witches. What great witches? That's a respectful title for them. You can also call them leader witches. Then they're the strongest witches in Europe, right? In terms of individual power, they're indeed the strongest. I don't think they're that strong, Chen Zhao said disapprovingly. Chun Zhao did not deny that they were strong, but they'd lost to him in the end, so he could not think highly of them. If the strongest witches in Europe were only at this level, then Chen Zhao would be really disappointed. But they represent the Magic Palace. It's the largest magic organization in the world. So, what if they're strong? We're separated by the Atlantic Ocean. Do you think they can call thousands of witches to come here and settle the score with us? Chun Zhao looked at the corner.
Rupert, come out.
Rupert pursed her lips and walked out from the corner. Did you hear what they said just now? Yes. Tell me why you're with Sibylla. Sibylla said that she has a way to pull the demon's soul out of my body without harming me. What about now? Clearly, Sibylla lied to me. In fact, I'd sensed it before. Then why are you with them? Chapter 1194. Then your original goal probably wasn't to cooperate with Sibylla, right? Rupert was playing with her fingers. Chun Zhao could tell that Rupert didn't want to talk. Chun Zhao didn't force her either. Whatever. You can tell me whenever you want. Sibylla controls Kong Mosa's demon army, Rupert said. Chun Zhao froze. If that's the case, why does she want to resurrect Kong Mosa? Isn't it better for her to control Kong Mosa's demon army? She's only a temporary commander. There are also people who oppose her in the army. They think that she's only a human. If she wants to continue controlling the army, she has to work hard for Kong Mosa's resurrection. If she continues to summon the army for her own sake, the army will tear her apart. How many demons are there in the army? Thousands of converted demons and 4 demon commanders, Rupert said. How do you know so much? Rupert pointed at her head. He told me. Are you sure he's telling the truth? After all, he's sealed in my body. You can say that my soul and his have merged into one. He can't lie to me. So if Sibylla wants to resurrect Kong Mosa, she'll pull your soul out too? She said that she has a way to separate me from the demon's soul. Does she really have a way? Chen Zhao asked. I've never thought about that, Rupert said. I have my own plan. What plan? 1/3 of the demon's soul is sealed in me, Mahage, and Fei Sha's bodies. It can be said that the 3 of us have some kind of connection, but if the 2 of them die, then the demon's soul and their bodies will also be destroyed. At that time, Kong Mosa's power will be greatly weakened, and he will no longer be able to affect me. Instead, I can fuse with his soul and then completely turn it into my power. Rupert looked young, but her ambition was no less than any adult's. Chen, help me get rid of Mahage and Fei Sha. If it's you, you can definitely do it. Rupert looked at Chen Zhao expectantly. Chen Zhao glanced at Rupert indifferently, but he sneered inside. The words that this little girl had just spoken were probably far from her true feelings. He reckoned that this lass had other plans in her heart that she had yet to reveal. If he took the bait so easily, he would probably fall into her trap in the end. We'll see. I don't even know where they're hiding now. Before the 15th of this month, Sibylla will show up and attack you.
Why?
To snatch me back, Rupert said, because the seal on Kong Mose's body is about to lose its effect. This is their last chance. If they can't return Kong Mose's soul to his body before the seal is undone, then his body will go out of control. So, as long as we hide you and wait until the 15th, we'll win? Do you think it's that simple? Rupert mocked. Faith, Mahage, and I can sense each other's souls. It doesn't matter where you hide me. Sibylla knows where Kong Mose's body is sealed. Of course, 1,000 years have passed in the sealed land. There are no secrets that can be hidden for 1,000 years without being discovered, not to mention a group of demons who are scheming to uncover secrets. Moreover, they have already obtained Kong Mose's body. Are you saying that the seal on Kong Mose's body has been undone? No, it's just a seal. Sibylla and the commander of the demon army got Kong Mose's body, but they didn't undo the seal. Kong Mose's body doesn't have a soul. Once the seal is undone, he'll go out of control. That's why they had to release his soul at the last moment so that it could return to his body. Then how did the demon army and Kong Mose's body avoid people's attention? Chun Zhao asked curiously. If they want to take you away, then they'll have to invade our association. But they'll have to do it with great fanfare. It'll be very troublesome for 1,000 demons to get here, right? By the way, how do they get through customs? How do they buy tickets? Rupert rolled her eyes. The demon army was transformed. They were originally humans, so they have human faces. Apart from their faith, they're pretty much the same as humans. Ever since they woke up, they've been hibernating in human society. March 15th, right? If you kill Mahage and Fei Sha before that, things will be much simpler. They'll give up on the attack. Rupert still hadn't given up on persuading Qin Zhao. Didn't you say that you can sense their location? Tell me where they are now, Rupert said helplessly. You know what I'm saying to you now will be heard by the demon soul, and the demon soul will not allow the other parts of its soul to be destroyed. So, you can't tell me where they are now. Even if I want to help you kill them, it's useless. But I'm looking forward to the arrival of the demon army. Chun, you can't defeat a demon army. Even with the supernatural organization, you have no chance of winning. Don't underestimate anyone here, Qin Zhao said calmly. Right, West?
Huh?
West's laugh was very forced. This might be the most dangerous battle that Qin Zhao and the supernatural organization had ever experienced. However, Qin Zhao hoped that this battle could be a reference to test his strength. But before that, Qin Zhao still had to create his weapon. If the human world couldn't provide the weapon he needed, Qin Zhao could only go to hell. Relatively speaking, Qin Zhao could indeed get a suitable weapon from Great Lord Beelzebub Zophi or the handsome young man. But this would be very utilitarian. In the past, Qin Zhao and Beelzebub Zophi's relationship was an exchange of benefits. But after interacting for a long time, it was inevitable that their hearts would be moved. The handsome young man had been moved from the beginning. Thus, Qin Zhao wasn't willing to involve too many benefits. If he needed to find the two of them, their relationship would become complicated and not so pure. Perhaps the demons Qin Zhao knew in hell would have some sort of goal. Chapter 1195. President, you've been rubbing your palms the entire way. I have to suspect that you're actually planning to kill that Japanese. Wes looked at Qin Zhao's spirited expression. He was very doubtful that he'd managed to invite Dongye Tianqi. Maybe it wasn't a good decision. Should I call him now and make an appointment with Dongye Tianqi another day? Qin Zhao's idea was simple. Since it was a date, he'd talk. But if he heard anything unpleasant, he'd beat him up so badly that even his mother wouldn't recognize him. Dongye Tianqi lived in an apartment building. When Qin Zhao and West arrived at Dongye Tianqi's house, they realized that Dongye Tianqi wasn't alone. His wife and daughter were there too. The house was decorated like the families in the Japanese movies Qin Zhao had seen. There was even a painting with the word endure on the wall. Dongye Tianchi wasn't tall, and he was bald. Because he was at home, he wore a kimono. Standing beside Dongye Tianchi was his wife, Riko Oikawa. Hello, Mr. West. This is the president of our association, Chen. Hello, Chen-san, are you from China?
Yes.
Chun Zhao didn't know Japanese. Chun Zhao didn't speak Japanese, but he knew that san was a more formal form of address in Japanese. At the same time, it also represented intimacy. Dongye Tianchi brought Chen Zhao and West to the coffee table in the study. Riko Okinawa poured tea for them thoughtfully. It could be seen that Riko Daichi was a very virtuous woman, and she was also relatively traditional. Okinawa, you can leave first. Chen-san, this is Longjing tea from Hangzhou, China. Please have a taste. Chun Zhao took a sip and said indifferently, Mr. Dongye, have you heard of a cow chewing on a peony? Chen-san, you seem to be very hostile toward me. Since you know that I'm Chinese, then you should also know that not every Chinese like Japanese, especially some of the Japanese political concepts that are difficult to agree with. Chen-san, I understand what you mean. I can't change the thoughts of the people or the government. I can only represent myself and apologize for what the Japanese did in the past. What Chen Zhao wanted was an attitude. However, Dongye Tianchi's second sentence made Chen Zhao unhappy. Does Chen Sang use a sword? Yes. How did you know? You have sword chi on you. But I think China's double-edged sword has a big gap with the Japanese katana in terms of practicality and durability, said Higashino Tengsi. If Chun-san is interested in trying the Japanese katana, he will like the feeling of it. Chen Zhao did not know why Dongye Tianchi was telling him this. But as a Chinese, he had to protect his country first. Then what makes Mr. Higashino say that? Because I'm an expert. In terms of the shape and physical lines of the sword, the Japanese sword is superior to China's double-edged sword. Since you're an expert, why are you arguing with a non-expert? Chen Zhao really wanted to retort with his actions, but he wasn't an expert. I'm also saying this based on my professionalism. If there's a possibility of cooperation in the future, I won't make inferior weapons. No matter what, Chen Zhao was very unhappy. You said Japanese swords are durable, right? That's right.
Good.
Do you have your work at home? Chen Zhao asked. Of course. Can I take a look? Of course. Dongye Tianchi was clearly very confident in the weapons he'd made. He took out a Japanese sword from the cabinet on the bookshelf. The scabbard of this Japanese sword was very exquisite. It was wrapped in a wooden scabbard made of python skin, and the handle was wrapped in white silk. There was also a ribbon left over. Chen-sang, please take a look. Chen Zhao gently pulled out the scabbard. The blade hummed softly. Chen Zhao did not know if the sword was good or bad, but his intuition told him that it was indeed very sharp. Mr. Higashino, can I try the durability you mentioned? Of course. Chen-sang, go ahead. Chen Zhao's right hand was already filled with magic. His left hand held the handle. Next, Chen Zhao exerted force. Crack! The blade of the Japanese katana was broken. With a smile, Chen Zhao placed the broken katana on the coffee table. Sorry, I accidentally used too much force. Dongye Tianchi's expression immediately turned livid. His face was bright red. But I don't think Japanese swords are that durable. Of course, it's also possible that Mr. Higashino's sword isn't as good as you think. Chen Zhao directly questioned Dongye Tianchi's skills. For a swordsmith, this was the greatest humiliation. Sorry, Chen-sang. I think you've misunderstood. This sword is indeed not of high quality. Please wait a moment. The Japanese man was very proud. He would not allow others to question his skills. This was something he'd persisted in for decades. He could not let anyone question him. Dongye Tianchi stood up again and hurried out of the study. A few minutes later, Dongye Tianchi returned with a Japanese sword in both hands. I forged this sword when I was 45 years old. It's called Skyfall. Please take a look, Mr. Chen. Chen Zhao took the Japanese katana called Sky Sword. Can I continue? Of course. This sword is Mr. Higashino's best skill? It's made from ordinary materials. It's not the best sword, but it does contain my best skill. Chun Zhao held the sword in his left hand. This time, he did not use it to bend it. Instead, he chopped at his right arm. Ah! Dongye Tianqi was shocked and wanted to stop him. But it was too late. Chun Zhao had already chopped down. Clang! A corner of the blade was missing, but Chun Zhao's arm was undamaged. I'm sorry, Mr. Higashino. It seems that you're not the person our association needs. Chun Zhao stood up. A weapon that can easily break, even myself can't satisfy my needs. Chun Zhao's words were rather polite, but he had actually insulted Dongye Tianqi to the core. Chun Zhao was still very happy. He'd insulted the Japanese man. He'd dealt a heavy blow to Dongye Tianqi's most proud profession. West could only stand up and look at Chun Zhao helplessly. His gaze seemed to be saying, "Why do you have to do this?" From beginning to end, West hadn't said anything. He could tell that Chun Zhao's stubbornness had surfaced. He also blamed Dongye Tianqi for making things difficult for Chun Zhao. If he hadn't said that Chinese swords were inferior to Japanese swords, things wouldn't have gotten so unpleasant. Wait.
Chun-san.
Is there anything else? Chun-san, I hope you can give me a chance. I'll definitely make a weapon that satisfies your needs. Sorry, I don't need a Japanese sword. I want a double-edged sword from China. Chun-san, what's wrong with a Japanese sword? Can you make a Japanese sword that won't bend? Can't China swords be bent by Chun-san? You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.